welcome. I'm truly grateful to have you here. Please, make yourself comfortable and take your time. This story was crafted with care, dedication, and deep respect for your attention. I hope it brings you joy, reflection, and perhaps even a touch of nostalgia. Once again, thank you for sharing a moment of your day with me. The year is 1347. You find yourself pushing open a sagging wooden door, the hinge groaning a rusty protest, and stepping across the threshold of what was once your home. Instantly, the air assaults you. Not just one smell, but layers. The thick, cloying breath of decay from something long forgotten, the metallic tang of stale blood from the road, a bitter whiff of mildew clinging to damp stones, all mixed with the unmistakable heavy scent of unwashed bodies and closed-up spaces. It's not the comforting aroma of wood smoke and baked bread you've clung to in your memories, nor the clean, sharp air of distant battlefields. This is different. You cough, a harsh, ragged sound that scrapes your raw throat and echoes in the sudden, suffocating quiet. Your eyes, still adjusting from the brutal, relentless glare of the desert sun, strain in the perpetual twilight of this small dwelling. Dust motes dance like tiny, forgotten spirits in the thin sliver of light, piercing through a grimy, cobwebbed window. Every surface, every worn plank of wood, every cold, rough stone, seems coated in a fine, gray film, a silent blanket of neglect. You reach out, your fingers brushing against a familiar yet now alien wooden beam, and the grit of it clings to your skin, a physical reminder of the long, arduous years you've been away, of the person you were then and the stranger you've become now. This place, it's technically yours, built by your hands, filled with echoes of your youth, yet it feels entirely foreign, a hollowed-out husk waiting for a spirit that simply isn't yours anymore. You can almost taste the stale bitterness in the air, a flavor that mirrors the one that settled deep in your own mouth, a constant companion since you left the Holy Land. Movement in the corner. A small child, barely more than a toddler, peeks from behind a tattered piece of cloth, their wide, solemn eyes fixed on your scarred, gaunt face. There's no recognition, no joyful cry, just a silent, unsettling question hanging between you, a reflection of your own confusion. You search for a familiar warmth, the kind of welcome you'd yearned for on countless freezing nights and scorching days. But there's only an empty chill that seeps into your bones, deeper than any medieval winter wind. You try to call out a name, any name, but your throat feels impossibly tight, choked with unspoken words, with the accumulated dust of forgotten crusades, and with the heavy weight of the journey's end. This homecoming isn't the relief you imagined. It's just another stark beginning, a new landscape of broken expectations you don't yet understand. You stand there, a warrior returned, and realize the real battle might just be starting here, within these walls, within yourself. If this story resonates with you, please like and subscribe. I'm curious, where in the world are you listening from, and what time is it there? Share in the comments. It's astonishing, isn't it? How the longest, most epic journeys often lead you right back to a stranger in your own skin, in your own forgotten home. You dip a trembling hand into the icy cold of the water bucket. The sudden chill is sharp, clean shock against your grime-caked skin. The metallic scent of well water, drawn from deep earth, rises to meet you, a stark contrast to the cloying decay of the room. You cup a palmful, splashing it on your face, and the cold bites, stinging the raw, wind-chapped skin. But as you wipe away the film of dirt and sweat, a movement catches your eye in the murky surface of the water. A face stares back. It's yours? You lean closer, your breath fogging the disturbed surface for a moment before it settles again. The eyes are yours, undeniably. The same intense shade you remember, but they're set deeper now, shadowed by years of sleepless nights and searing sun. Around them, fine lines spiderweb out, etched by relentless squinting against desert glare and the horror of sights you can never unsee. Your cheekbones, once rounded, now jut sharply, almost skeletal, and your jawline is a hard, unforgiving line, entirely new. A thick, matted beard, flecked with gray that wasn't there when you left, covers much of your face, but it can't hide the deep, jagged scar that cleaves your left brow, pulling it into a perpetual scowl. You trace it with a calloused finger, the skin beneath still tender. It's a map of every battle, every starvation, every despair. This isn't the youthful, confident face you said goodbye to. This isn't even truly a man's face, not in the way you once understood it. This is the face of a survivor, yes, but also of a specter. It's a mask of bitterness, etched with a constant weary pain that makes your own reflection look like a stranger. You try to conjure the old smile, the one that used to crinkle the corners of your eyes, but your lips feel stiff, unused to the motion. The muscles refuse to obey, locking into a grimace instead. It's a face that has seen too much, felt too much, lost too much, and now it reflects nothing but the hollow echo of a soul. You pull your hand back from the water, the ripples distorting the image, blurring the features back into an unrecognizable swirl. A profound exhaustion settles over you, heavier than any armor you ever wore, a fatigue that seeps into your very bones. It's not just the physical toll of the journey, but the sudden, stark realization that the man who left is truly gone. The Crusader returned, but he's not whole. He's fractured, scarred, and the most frightening part is that you can barely recognize the shards. The reflection in the water isn't just a stranger. It's a living testament to how much of you has been consumed by the years of holy war. Perhaps, in some twisted way, the person you were had to die out there so this new, harder self could endure. But seeing it, truly seeing it now, feels like a final, brutal cut. You reach for the hunk of dark, coarse bread on the table, your fingers closing around its dense, unyielding crust. It feels heavy, solid, almost a weapon in your hand. A faint, yeasty smell, mixed with the ever-present dampness of the room, rises from it. This is sustenance, the kind you dreamed of during endless, gnawing famines on campaign. You tear a piece off, the dry crumbs dusting your calloused palm. You bring it to your mouth, expecting the rich, simple comfort of home-baked goodness, the kind that anchors a man. But the first bite is nothing. A flat, inert substance, dry against your tongue. You chew, slowly, deliberately, trying to coax some flavor, some hint of the life it should represent. It's not bad, not spoiled, but it's utterly bland, a texture more than a taste. Your jaw aches with the effort of mastication, the dense mass refusing to soften, to yield any satisfaction. It feels like eating sawdust, a hollow echo of sustenance. Across the worn table you see a woman, her face shadowed, her movements slow as she tends a meager fire. The same child from yesterday, now a little closer, watches you with large, unblinking eyes as you chew, silently assessing this strange, silent man who has appeared. You can feel their unspoken questions, their hesitant curiosity, but you can't offer them anything in return. not a smile, not a comforting word. Your mouth is too full of this tasteless bread, and your mind too full of distant, sharper memories. You remember the desperate, frantic joy of a mouthful of scorched barley found in a deserted village, the sudden, intense flavor of a tough stewed root pulled from scorched earth. Those meager rations, eaten under the constant threat of a blade or an arrow, tasted like feasts, like life itself. They had flavor, sharpened by hunger, by danger, by the sheer will to survive. But this bread, this safe, abundant, plain bread, in a quiet, undisturbed home, offers nothing but an empty presence. It fills your stomach, yes, but your spirit remains untouched, still ravenous for something else entirely. You swallow with difficulty, the bread a lump in your throat, and you feel a profound, disorienting void. This is peace, you realize, this quiet, this safety, this unseasoned meal. And it tastes like nothing. The harsh, bitter spice of war, the constant, heightened senses, the raw intensity of every moment, they are gone. And with them, it seems, has gone your capacity for simple joy, for simple flavor. You've come home to abundance, but your palate, and perhaps your soul, has been irrevocably altered, rendered numb to the very comforts you once craved. You are full, yet utterly empty. You settle onto a rough-hewn stool near the hearth, the radiating heat from the crackling logs, a tangible presence against your cold, weary skin. For so long you've yearned for this simple comfort, for a warmth that isn't the oppressive blaze of a desert sun or the brief, sharp heat of a burning village. This is different. A steady, gentle glow, the kind that promises safety and permanence. Yet, it feels distant, a vivid scene playing out before you rather than an embrace. The sweet, familiar smell of burning wood, of home, drifts around you. But even that comfort seems to bypass something essential deep inside, leaving your core untouched. Your clothes, still smelling faintly of travel and the foreign lands you've left behind, seem to absorb the heat without truly transferring it to your bones. The woman, your wife, sits opposite you, her head bowed slightly over a spindle, her hands moving with practiced, tireless grace. The rhythmic, almost hypnotic hum of the spinning thread is the only consistent sound, a counterpoint to the soft hiss and pop of the fire. Her gaze, when it occasionally lifts, flits across your face, never quite lingering, holding a mixture of apprehension and an unreadable sorrow that chills you more than any winter wind. There's no easy touch, no spontaneous movement towards you, no shared glance that speaks of long-missed intimacy or a comfortable understanding. The child, still a quiet shadow clinging to her skirts, watches you with a solemn intensity, a small, silent observer of this strange tableau. You feel their presence, a heavy, almost suffocating weight in the small, familiar space, yet you also feel an immense, unbridgeable distance between you all. It's as if a thick, invisible wall, carved from years of harsh separation and the unspeakable horrors you've endured, has risen, impenetrable, separating you from the very people you fought to return to. You yearn to reach out, to somehow bridge this chasm that yawns wider with every passing silent minute. You want to speak, to pour out the torrent of scorching sand, the desperate thirst, the screams of dying men, the empty prayers, the profound, endless emptiness that has become your constant companion. But the words catch in your throat, thick and unformed, like ancient, jagged stones refusing to be dislodged. What could you possibly say that wouldn't sound like a nightmare, a language they could never truly comprehend, a burden too heavy for their peaceful lives? Their existence here, simple, domestic, framed by the familiar rhythms of village life, feels utterly alien to the raw, brutal, constantly vigilant struggle that has shaped your very being. Your hands, scarred and calloused, feel impossibly rough, almost violent, in this quiet, domestic scene. You clench them into fists, feeling the familiar ache of old wounds, the phantom weight of a sword that is no longer there, a constant reminder of the life you left behind and the man you can no longer be. The flames dance, a mesmerizing spectacle, casting flickering shadows that stretch and shrink across the familiar walls, momentarily making the room seem monstrous, then achingly small again. You watch them, seeking some answer, some flicker of warmth that might ignite a connection. Here everything moves slowly, deliberately, laden with unspoken things, a stark contrast to the chaotic, unpredictable, urgent dance of battle that once defined your every breath. You perceive a subtle shift in the woman's posture, a barely perceptible tightening of her jaw, as she steadfastly avoids your gaze. It isn't anger, you realize, but something colder, a deep, protective withdrawal that has perhaps become her only defense. You are home, yes, physically present by the comforting hearth, yet you are further away than you ever were on any distant, blood-soaked battlefield. This profound silence, heavy and thick, is not peaceful. You're reaching for a simple wooden bowl on the shelf, your fingers just brushing its cool, smooth surface when it happens. A sudden, sharp, almost electric jolt shoots through your left arm. From shoulder to fingertips. It isn't pain, not exactly, but a raw, involuntary spasm, pulling your elbow inward as if yanking a shield into position against a swinging axe. Your hand clamps shut, not around the bowl, but into a phantom grip on a sword hilt, tensing with an ancient bone-deep readiness to parry a blow that isn't there. The bowl clatters, tumbling to the floor with a hollow thud that sounds impossibly loud in the quiet room. Your breath catches, held captive in your chest. The muscles in your arm ache, vibrating with the residual energy of a battle fought years ago, thousands of leagues away. You stand frozen, heart hammering against your ribs, a drumbeat of fear and adrenaline echoing a past that refuses to stay buried. Your eyes dart around the small, familiar space, seeing not the comforting shadows of your home, but the flashing glint of steel, the chaotic dance of death, the dusty, blood-soaked ground of a forgotten skirmish. The smell of burning wood from the hearth momentarily twists into the acrid scent of smoke and fear. The woman at the spindle pauses, the hum of her work abruptly silenced. Her head lifts slowly, her eyes, filled with that same quiet apprehension, fix on your rigid form, then drop to the fallen bowl. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. Her silent gaze communicates a weary understanding, a recognition of the unseen war still raging within you, a battle you can't even explain, let alone escape. The small child beside her flinches, tightening their grip on her skirt, their innocent eyes mirroring the tension in the room. You force your hand to unclench, the phantom grip loosening with a tremor. The sensation slowly recedes, leaving behind a dull throb, a deep, unsettling ache that settles in your forearm. It's a reminder, stark and undeniable, that the conflict didn't end when you stepped off the ship. It continued, a relentless, insidious siege within the very vessel of your own body. Your arm, once a tool of war, is now a living testament to its enduring tyranny. A limb haunted by the echoes of blows struck and parried, a ghost of its former, more lethal self. You bend slowly, stiffly, to retrieve the wooden bowl, the simple action feeling like an immense, deliberate effort. Your body, once a finely tuned weapon, now feels like a stranger's, a collection of nerves and muscles that act without your command, pulling you back to horrors you desperately want to forget. This phantom limb, this ghost of the battlefield, makes it impossible to distinguish between then and now, between peace and war. It's a constant, physical betrayal, a fragment of the crusade that you brought home, hidden deep within your bones, a chilling whisper of a life you can never truly leave behind. You stir, waking slowly from a troubled sleep, and the first sensation isn't the softness of the straw pallet beneath you, nor the lingering chill of the morning air. It's a dull, persistent throb, a deep ache that has settled into your left shoulder, radiating down into your elbow and wrist. It feels like cold iron has seeped into your very bones overnight, seizing your joints in an unyielding grip. The air itself seems to prickle against old scars, the ones on your ribs, across your back, remnants of forgotten blades and impacts that nearly claimed you. Each breath, a slight expansion of your chest, sends a faint, familiar warning through those knitted tissues. You push yourself up, slowly, the simple act of sitting an arduous process. Your spine protests with a low groan that feels more ancient than your years. Every muscle, every ligament seems to have tightened into a stubborn knot, as if bracing for an impact that never comes. The small wooden table where yesterday's tasteless bread still rests seems impossibly far away. You shift your weight, a carefully orchestrated sequence of movements designed to avoid exacerbating any of the myriad points of discomfort that now define your physical existence. There's a particular stiffness in your left knee, a constant low-level grind that whispers of a poorly healed twist from a fall during a siege. The wound across your forehead, a souvenir from a skirmish outside Antioch, pulls taut with every frown, every tired blink. You stand, finally, your frame feeling heavy, laden with an invisible weight that presses down from within. This isn't the supple, agile body you remember from your youth, the one that could spring into action, climb walls, or endure endless marches with tireless zeal. This body is a fortress of pain, each ache a sentinel, each stiff joint a locked gate, guarding against movement, against ease. It's an armor, constantly worn, thick with the history of blows, hunger, and relentless strain. You walk across the small room, your gait subtly altered, favoring one side, adjusting for the persistent pull in your hip that never quite lets go. The rough floorboards feel uneven beneath your calloused feet, each step a conscious negotiation with your protesting limbs. Your wife, already moving about the small dwelling, preparing for the day, glances at you as you move. Her eyes hold that familiar, unreadable mix of concern and resignation. She doesn't ask, doesn't offer solace, because what is there to say? This daily, grinding discomfort is your new shadow, your constant companion. It isn't a fresh wound that will heal, but the permanent alteration of your very being, a landscape of lingering agony that has become as familiar as the air you breathe. The memory of effortless movement, of a body that simply obeyed, feels like a distant dream, a privilege lost in the scorching deserts of the Holy Land. Now, every mundane task, fetching water, chopping, kindling, even just reaching for your cloak, is a small, quiet battle, a triumph of will over the ceaseless, nagging demands of a body broken and remade by war. This isn't just pain, you realize. This is your life now, a constant, low-burning fire that reshapes every moment, every breath. The distant, rhythmic thud starts as a subtle tremor beneath your feet, a low vibration in the very earth of the village, then swiftly grows, deep and unsettlingly resonant. Thump, thump. It's the blacksmith, down by the river bend, his heavy hammer falling on red-hot iron, shaping it with powerful, deliberate strikes. But to you, it's not just the mundane sound of a craftsman at work. It's a memory, a raw, physical sensation that reverberates through your very bones, an echo of countless impacts. Each mighty fall of the hammer sends a familiar, visceral jolt up your spine, a phantom pressure against your ribs, a whisper of a shield absorbing a devastating blow, of a warhammer crashing mercilessly into mail. You feel it deep in the dull, unyielding ache of your old shoulder wound, in the stiff, grinding joint of your knee, in the persistent tension that locks your jaw. It's the undeniable, terrible sound of having been shaped, hammered, endlessly and brutally, on the unforgiving anvil of war. You grip the simple wooden mug in your hand, your knuckles stark white against the pale wood. The warm, rough material feels flimsy, fragile, utterly insubstantial, completely inadequate against the invisible, rhythmic force that seems to buffet you from the outside in, yet resonates from within. Your breath hitches, shallow and quick, as if your body is instinctively bracing for the next strike, waiting for the impact that always follows. A faint, acrid scent of burnt charcoal and hot iron, carried on the crisp, cool morning air, infiltrates your small home, momentarily overwhelming the gentler, more familiar smells of damp earth and stale bread. It is the very scent of the crucible, of the furnace where men were either hammered into relentless, unfeeling weapons or shattered into forgotten dust. You stand rigid in the doorway, peering out into the soft gray light of the nascent day, observing the ordinary, unsuspecting rhythm of village life. A farmer guides his lumbering cow along the muddy track. Children chase a yelping dog across the dewy green, and thin tendrils of wood smoke curl lazily from neighboring chimneys, disappearing into the vast, indifferent sky. Everything outside your skin is profoundly calm, achingly peaceful, entirely indifferent to the violent internal storm that the distant hammer has relentlessly unleashed within you. The incessant thump, thump continues its relentless assault, a physical manifestation of the raw, shaping violence that forged you, body and soul, during those unforgiving years. You close your eyes, tightly, for a fleeting moment, and the quiet village vanishes, erased by the vivid, all-consuming memory. You are no longer standing on the damp, familiar earth of your home. Instead, you are back on sun-baked ground, the air thick with choking dust, and the sharp, metallic tang of fresh blood. The rhythmic, percussive clang of swords and axes striking against shields and bone fills your ears, each impact a desperate, primal measure of survival, a testament to the brutal dance of life and death. You can almost feel the heavy, familiar weight of your own blade in your grip, the bone-jarring vibration of a parried blow shooting agonizingly through your arm, the desperate scramble for purchase on slippery, blood-slicked stone, the guttural roar of men as they surge forward or fall back in a chaotic, deadly ballet. It's not merely a fleeting image, it's a profound, full-body recollection, a muscle memory so deep, so utterly ingrained, that it makes your entire frame tremble with an uncontrolled, ancient fear. When you force your eyes open again, the village is still there, resolutely peaceful, blissfully unaware of the inferno that rages in your mind. But you? You are still caught in that searing forge, the heat of the memory burning just beneath your skin, a permanent brand. The quiet descends like a heavy shroud, a thick, suffocating blanket that presses in on you from all sides as night fully claims the small dwelling. It isn't the gentle, comforting silence of a peaceful home, the kind that invites rest. No, this quiet is something else entirely, a vast, echoing emptiness that feels profoundly wrong, a void screaming for something to fill it. And fill it does. Your ears, hyper-attuned from years of listening for the faintest rustle of an enemy's cloak or the distant thud of a marching column, begin to pick up sounds that aren't truly there. A faint whisper, just at the edge of hearing, like a voice murmuring a forgotten prayer or a curse. Then a scraping sound, soft, insidious, as if something sharp is being dragged across rough stone, a sound that immediately makes the hairs on your neck prickle, sending a cold electric shiver down your spine. Your breath catches, held tight in your chest, and your eyes, wide open in the oppressive darkness, strain to pierce the blackness, searching for the source of these phantom noises. Every shadow on the wall, every indistinct shape of a familiar object, twists and shifts in your peripheral vision, coalescing into terrifying, fleeting forms. Is that the glint of a helmet? A raised sword? A face, twisted in agony or malice? Your heart pounds against your ribs, a frantic, desperate rhythm that feels impossibly loud in the dead quiet, threatening to betray your presence to whatever unseen threat lurks in the corners of your perception. You try to tell yourself it's just the old house settling, just the wind playing tricks, but the rational voice is a faint, distant plea against the clamoring, insistent terror that pulses through your blood. You reach out, hand closing around the rough, cool hilt of your long sheathed dagger, tucked instinctively beneath the straw pallet. The familiar weight, the cold steel against your palm, offers a perverse comfort, a tangible anchor in a mind that feels like it's fragmenting, tearing at the edges of reality. Your muscles tense, ready to spring, poised for an attack that never materializes, a phantom enemy perpetually just out of sight, just beyond reach. The air grows thick with the metallic tang of fear, a taste you know intimately, a flavor of dread that clings to your tongue. You feel eyes on you, 1,000 unseen gazes boring into your back, your face, your very soul, even though you are utterly alone in this room. You scan the darkness again, your mind replaying flashes of past ambushes, of sudden, brutal encounters, the faces of men you killed, and men who tried to kill you, all swirling in a chaotic, dizzying dance behind your eyelids. Sleep is an impossible luxury, a forgotten concept. Each time you drift, the whispers grow louder, the phantom sounds sharper, dragging you back to a waking nightmare of ceaseless vigilance. This isn't the enemy you fought in the desert, no. This is something far more insidious, a tormentor that has taken root deep within your own skull, twisting every moment of quiet, every moment of peace, into a crucible of paranoia and terror. It's the devil in the soldier's mind, a relentless, internal enemy that war has birthed and brought home with you. It strips away rest, steals away sanity, and leaves you trapped in an unending battle, forever poised on the brink of a fight that will never truly end. You are a prisoner in your own thoughts, endlessly patrolling the ramparts of a fortress that offers no escape. You push open the heavy creaking door, and a suffocating wave of noise, warmth, and a potent cocktail of smells immediately washes over you. It's the acrid tang of stale ale, the cloying sweetness of cheap wine, the greasy scent of forgotten mutton, all underpinned by the thick, choking smoke of a dozen hearths and unwashed bodies. You step inside, your boots sticking slightly to the grimy floorboards, each step a small, resistant pull against the unseen filth that coats everything. The air is so thick it feels almost liquid, heavy with laughter, slurred shouts, and the mournful, off-key drone of a distant lute. This isn't the quiet, unsettling emptiness of your home, but a roaring, chaotic void. Another kind of battle to endure. Your eyes, still adjusting from the stark grays of the outside world, strain in the perpetual dimness of the tavern. Torches flicker erratically, casting dancing shadows that twist the boisterous faces around you into distorted, grotesque masks. You navigate the packed room, your shoulder brushing against rough wool, against sweating skin, each accidental contact a jolt, a jarring intrusion into the personal space you've grown accustomed to guarding so fiercely. The noise is a physical assault, a relentless clamor that threatens to swallow any coherent thought, to drown out the incessant whispers of your own mind. It's a strange relief, this overwhelming cacophony, a temporary reprieve from the silent torment that has haunted your nights and days. You find a vacant space at a scarred, heavy wooden table, slick with spilled drinks and the accumulated grime of countless hands. As you sit, your forearm rests against the surface, and a cold, sticky dampness immediately adheres to your skin. It's repulsive, yet you don't recoil. It's a different kind of unpleasantness, a mundane one, a human one, far removed from the sharp metallic sting of battle wounds or the parched, burning thirst of the desert. You signal to a passing tavern wench, her face a blur of motion and weary indifference, and point to a half-empty jug of ale on another table. She nods, a brief, fleeting acknowledgement, and moments later, a heavy, chipped earthenware mug is placed before you, brimming with dark, frothy liquid. The bitter, yeasty aroma rises, a promise of temporary oblivion. You lift the mug, the ceramic cool and rough against your chapped lips, and take a long, deep draught. The ale is thin, harsh, and bitter, burning a path down your throat, a stark contrast to the subtle, complex wines you sometimes plundered in distant lands, or the simple, sweet water you craved with aching desperation. It's not a taste to savor, but one to endure, to swallow quickly, letting its dulling power seep into your veins. Around you, men laugh, slap each other on the back, their faces flushed with drink and uncomplicated joy. They look at you, if they look at all, with fleeting curiosity, then their gazes slide away, returning to their revelry, their unburdened lives. They see a silent, scarred man, a stranger, and they don't know the silent scream that echoes inside your skull, the endless battle that still rages behind your hollow eyes. You watch them, these men of peace, their movements free and unburdened, their laughter genuine. A pang of something cold, something akin to envy, tightens in your chest, quickly followed by a heavy, impenetrable bitterness. You are here, among them, sharing their air, their ale, their space, yet you are leagues away, an alien in their midst. The sticky table, laden with the residues of their fleeting pleasures, feels like an anchor, pulling you down into the murky depths of forgetfulness. You drain the mug, the bitter liquid numbing the edges of your thoughts, dulling the sharp, insistent clarity of your torment. For a precious few moments, the incessant internal whispers of fear and memory recede, replaced by a hazy, warm indifference. The third mug of ale is half empty when you feel it. Not a sudden jolt, but a slow, insidious seep, a warmth spreading through your chest that isn't comfort. It's a burn, a dull, coiling heat that starts in your stomach and snakes upward, tightening your throat, then prickling at the back of your eyes. Your vision blurs at the edges, the flickering torchlight in the tavern transforming into smeared streaks of orange and yellow. The raucous din of voices, once a welcome distraction, now sounds distorted, like a swarm of angry bees trapped inside your skull, their buzzing growing louder, more insistent, threatening to split your head wide open. You slam the mug down onto the sticky table, the heavy thud barely audible above the rising chaos in your mind. The acrid taste of the ale, once a path to oblivion, now feels like potent venom coating your tongue, turning your stomach with a sudden churning nausea. A wave of dizziness washes over you, making the whole world tilt violently, threatening to capsize your precarious balance. You grip the edge of the table, knuckles white, the cold, greasy wood, a desperate anchor in a room that spins without mercy. Then the memories hit you, not as gentle whispers or fleeting shadows, but as brutal, vivid flashes, each one a hammer blow to your reeling mind. The scorching sun on desert sands, so bright it burned your eyes. The choked, gurgling sound of a dying man's last breath, impossibly close. The smell of burning flesh, sweet and horrifying, clinging to your nostrils. The feeling of your sword biting into bone. A sharp, sickening crunch that reverberates in your ears even now. Faces, grotesque and terrifying, flash before your eyes. The faces of enemies, the faces of comrades, all twisted by pain, fear, or death. They are not ghosts. They are real, pressing in on you from the tavern's smoky depths, their silent accusations piercing through the ale's hazy veil. Your chest tightens, seizing with an unbearable pressure, as if an invisible hand has clamped around your lungs, stealing your breath. You push yourself away from the table, stumbling, the world lurching with your every uncontrolled movement. The laughter of the other patrons, their oblivious merriment, morphs into a mocking roar, a chorus of voices condemning you, judging you for the horrors you've witnessed, for the deeds you've done. You catch a glimpse of yourself in a polished tankard, your face gaunt and pale, eyes wide with a terror that feels utterly ancient, utterly primordial. This isn't just the ale, you realize with a cold, terrifying clarity. This is the bitter truth, the inescapable weight of what you've carried home. The drink hasn't granted oblivion. It has stripped away the fragile defenses, cracking open the carefully constructed walls that held your torment at bay. You push past bewildered faces, your vision narrowed to a tunnel of desperation, the roaring in your ears now a deafening crescendo. The cold night air outside hits you like a physical blow, a harsh, stinging slap against your flushed skin. You gasp, drawing in huge, ragged breaths, trying to clear your lungs of the phantom smoke and blood that still cling to them. But the venom in the ale, the memories it unleashed, continue their relentless assault, twisting your gut, making your head throb with an unbearable intensity. The temporary peace bought with coin and bitter drink has turned on you, revealing itself as just another cruel battlefield, another brutal skirmish within the never-ending war that rages silently inside your very soul. You stand alone in the biting cold, truly exposed, no longer hidden by the din or the haze, acutely aware that there is no escape from the horrors you carry, no true oblivion to be found, not even in the deepest depths of the strongest ale. The heavy oak doors of the village church swing inward with a low, mournful groan, exhaling a dense, cloying cloud of frankincense and myrrh. The scent hits you first, thick and immediate, wrapping around you like a suffocating blanket. It's not the light, spiritual fragrance you remember from childhood masses. No! This is a potent, almost aggressive perfume, a rich, sickly sweet aroma that infiltrates your nostrils, coating your throat, making it difficult to draw a clean breath. It's the smell of solemnity, of reverence, but also, for you, it's the smell of death, of burials conducted in haste on foreign soil, of bloodied banners consecrated before hopeless battles, of promises made and broken under the watchful, indifferent eyes of a distant God. You step inside, and the sudden shift from the crisp, cool air outside to the oppressive warmth within makes your head swim. The vaulted stone ceiling looms high above, a vast, echoing cavern, and the stained glass windows, usually vibrant, appear muted, almost mournful in the weak morning light. Rows of villagers, their faces a blur of bowed heads and dark hoods, kneel in silent prayer, their collective devotion a tangible, almost physical weight in the air. The hushed whispers of the priest from the altar, his voice, a low, rhythmic drone, mixed with the crackling of candles and the rustle of robes, creating a soundscape of ritual and solemnity. But to your ears, attuned to the harsh, sudden sounds of combat, it all seems like a muffled, distant echo, a profound unreality. You move slowly down the aisle, your boots silent on the cold, ancient flagstones. Each step feels heavy, deliberate, as if you're wading through thick mud, or perhaps through the dense, invisible current of guilt and despair that has become your constant companion. The incense, relentless and pervasive, seems to seep into your very skin, clinging to your rough tunic, impregnating your hair, making your eyes water. It's supposed to be cleansing, purifying, but instead, it feels like a heavy pall, drawing out the impurities, the bitterness, the unspeakable memories you carry. You feel a strange sense of vertigo, a disorienting sensation of being utterly out of place, an anomaly in this sacred space. As you reach an empty pew, you notice the flickering light of a dozen candles on the altar, their small, defiant flames dancing against the backdrop of a crucifix. The sight, once a source of comfort and unwavering faith, now stirs a hollow ache in your chest. You remember countless nights spent beneath similar symbols, making desperate pleas, offering fervent prayers for deliverance, for victory, for an end to the brutal suffering. But those prayers, you recall with a bitter clarity, were never answered. The God you believed in, the one you fought for, seemed to have abandoned you and your comrades on those scorched, distant battlefields. You sink onto the hard wooden bench, the cold seeping through your thin garments, a familiar discomfort. The air is still thick with incense, pressing down on you, making your lungs ache. You close your eyes, trying to block out the oppressive scent, the rhythmic murmurs, the hollow emptiness that has replaced your faith. But even with your eyes shut, the scent lingers, mingling with the phantom smells of dust and blood, creating a suffocating cocktail of past and present. You are here, in the house of God, surrounded by the devout, but you feel profoundly alone, a pariah shrouded in the very incense meant to purify. The sacred space, for you, is no sanctuary. It is a suffocating reminder of all that was lost, all that was endured, and the bitter truth that some wounds, both physical and spiritual, can never truly be absolved. The first thing that strikes you isn't the light, though it streams through the high arched windows like liquid jewels, painting shifting patterns on the ancient stone floor. No. It's the sound, or rather, the profound absence of it. Despite the priest's distant, resonant chanting, each word he speaks, each rising note of a communal hymn, seems to climb toward the heavens, then simply dissipate, swallowed by the immense, cold space of the cathedral. There's no comforting embrace, no swelling chorus that lifts the spirit. Instead, each sound dies, leaving behind a hollow, echoing void that seems to absorb all warmth, all meaning. It makes the grand sacred space feel less like a sanctuary and more like a tomb, a cavern of lost promises. You lift your gaze, tracing the soaring, impossible curves of the vaulted ceiling, where centuries of pious craftsmanship have woven stone into a tapestry of divine aspiration. Intricate carvings, depicting saints and angels, martyrs and miracles, stand silent witness from their elevated perches. The sheer scale is breathtaking, designed to dwarf mortal man, to humble him before the majesty of God. But as you stand there, your rough wool tunic feeling thin against the profound chill that emanates from the ancient stones, you don't feel humility. You feel only a stark, disorienting insignificance, a chilling reminder of your own brokenness against such unyielding perfection. The cold seeps into your bones, a deeper cold than any winter wind, a cold that seems to come from the heart of the stone itself, a silent testament to the countless lives that have passed through this hallowed space, leaving behind their hopes and their despair. A few other villagers are scattered across the vast nave, small, solitary figures lost in prayer, their murmured devotions swallowed by the cathedral's immense silence. Their faith seems to anchor them, providing a shield against the vastness, a warmth against the chill. But for you, their quiet reverence only amplifies the profound emptiness that echoes within your own chest. You try to conjure a feeling, any spark of the fervent belief that once propelled you across continents, that drove you to wield a sword in the name of God. You search for the comfort, the certainty, the divine connection that this place is meant to embody. But there is nothing. Just a vast, cold, unyielding silence. The light shifts, catching a gilded altarpiece, illuminating the serene face of a painted saint, eyes cast upwards in blissful adoration. Yet even this image, once a beacon, now feels like a cruel mockery. What adoration could truly exist after the horrors you've witnessed, the atrocities committed in the name of that very faith? Your scarred hands, instinctively clenching into fists, feel rough and brutal in this place of delicate artistry. The cold of the stone floor presses through your thin boots, a constant, tangible reminder that while this building reaches for the heavens, your feet are firmly rooted in the earthly suffering you sought to escape, and from which you can never truly be free. You turn to leave, each step resonating with a hollow echo that follows you, a stark testament to the cavernous void within. The priest's distant voice, still chanting, sounds like a whisper in a storm, an unheard plea in an indifferent universe. This grandeur, this hallowed ground, it offers no solace, no absolution, no answers. It only magnifies the bitter truth. The faith you carried, the God you served, left you broken and abandoned in distant lands. And in this grand echoing cathedral, you realize with a chilling clarity that you have truly come home to an empty, desolate temple, both within these walls and within yourself. The silence of the stone is not peace. It is the sound of an utter, profound, and permanent absence. The scent is subtle at first, just a faint, unfamiliar note in the otherwise mundane air of the village market. You're passing by a merchant's stall, the familiar smells of fresh-cut wood, damp wool, and farm animals heavy around you when it catches you. A sharp, sweet, almost floral aroma, unlike anything you've encountered since your return. It's a ghost of a fragrance, a mere whisper, yet it instantly arrests your steps. Your head snaps up, your nostrils flaring, trying to pinpoint its source, trying to fully grasp the elusive, powerful memory it evokes. It's cinnamon, you realize, or perhaps clove, or maybe a blend of both, mixed with something else, something hotter, more exotic. Not the dried, faint dust found in a wealthy lord's kitchen, but the vibrant, pungent essence of fresh, potent spice. Instantly, the gray, muddy market square fades, replaced by a riot of color and sensation. You're back in a bustling bazaar, the sun a relentless hammer overhead, the air thick with the cacophony of 1,000 voices, the cries of merchants, the braying of donkeys, the chatter of foreign tongues. The aroma now isn't subtle, it's overwhelming, intoxicating, a complex symphony of cumin, cardamom, saffron, and that unmistakable fiery sweetness. It floods your senses, not just as a smell, but as a full-body experience. You can almost feel the dry, gritty dust of the marketplace beneath your worn boots, taste the sweet, sticky dates offered by a veiled vendor, hear the distant, haunting call to prayer from a minaret. You remember the dazzling silks, the gleaming brass lamps, the intricate patterns woven into carpets, the curious, dark eyes of the local people, assessing, wary, yet filled with a vibrant life that feels so far removed from the muted existence of your home village. For a fleeting, intense moment, the bitter cold that has settled deep into your bones thaws, replaced by the scorching, relentless heat of the desert, a heat that burned, yes, but also filled you with a strange, fierce vitality. You open your eyes, your breath catching in your throat, and the market stall is still there, piled high with simple, rough European goods. The merchant, a plump, red-faced man, glances at you with a flicker of mild annoyance at your sudden stop, then dismisses you, turning his attention to a woman haggling over a sack of grain. The foreign scent has dissipated, vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving behind only the dull, familiar smells of your mundane world. But the brief, potent journey it triggered lingers, a raw, aching wound. The intense, vibrant memories of those distant lands, once a source of terror and brutal suffering, now feel like a perverse kind of paradise. A vivid, hyper-real world contrasted with the bland, muted reality of your homecoming. The danger was constant. Yes, the fear a cold, gnawing companion, but so too was an undeniable, sharp intensity, a heightened awareness of every single moment, of every taste, every smell, every sensation. Here, in this peaceful, dull village, life moves in slow, predictable rhythms, devoid of the sharp edges, the potent flavors, the vivid dangers that once defined your existence. That faint whisper of spice, a mere ghost of a memory, has revealed a profound truth. You miss the vibrancy of that brutal, terrible world, a world where you felt alive even amidst the constant threat of death. And that realization, heavy and unsettling, is a bitter, unexpected taste in your mouth. You're standing by the village well, the icy rope cold and rough against your hands as you draw water. Around you, a small cluster of men, farmers, and a few merchants are gathered, their voices a low, intense hum that immediately captures your attention. It's not the usual gossip of harvests or the grumbling about taxes. No, the air around them crackles with a strange, unfamiliar energy, a tension that makes the hairs on your forearms prickle. Their gestures are animated, their faces drawn tight with a mixture of fear and a dangerous, almost wild excitement. As you draw closer, the words drift to you, carried on the crisp winter air. From the east, they say, carried by the merchants, a plague unlike any seen. And then another voice, softer, more insidious, murmurs. But they also speak of new maps, of numbers that unlock the stars, of medicines that heal wounds our chirurgeons can only watch fester. Your breath hitches. It's the east. The words are like a sudden, unexpected taste of copper and dust on your tongue, sharp and unsettling. The very mention of those lands, the crucible of your torment, now carries a different kind of shadow, a new threat that seems to creep stealthily across the vast familiar landscape of Europe. You watch their faces, catching a flicker of fear in one man's eyes as he talks of sickness, then a sudden, almost defiant light in another's as he speaks of forbidden texts, of knowledge brought back from infidel lands. These aren't the simple, pious folk you left behind. Something has shifted. The air is thick, not just with the threat of disease, but with the heady, dangerous scent of new ideas, carried like a contagion from those same distant shores where you lost so much. You feel it, a subtle tremor in the ground beneath your feet, a quiet erosion of the old certainties, the familiar ways. It's unsettling. A young man, his eyes bright, with a hungry curiosity that borders on recklessness, speaks of a physician from Salerno who dares to question ancient texts, applying methods learned from Arab scholars. He describes a surgical tool he saw, gleaming and precise, a stark contrast to the rough, bloodied implements of village healers. His words ignite a flicker of recognition within you. You remember glimpses of advanced medicine on campaign, swift, clean techniques that saved lives your own physicians deemed lost. You recall the elegant calligraphy of scientific texts, confiscated from captured strongholds, intricate maps of the heavens that put your own rudimentary understanding to shame. You tried to forget them, to dismiss them as the heathen sorcery of the enemy, but now, hearing these whispers in your own village, they resurface with an undeniable, chilling power. The water bucket, heavy in your hands, feels impossibly weighty, a reflection of the profound unease that has settled deep in your gut. These men, their faces earnest and worried, are discussing things that would have been heresy before you left, concepts that would have been met with fear and condemnation. But now, it's different. The suffering you endured, The battles you fought in the name of purity and faith seem to have opened a gateway, inadvertently ushering in a tide of new, dangerous understanding. The price of your crusade, you realize, isn't just your own brokenness, your shattered soul. It's something far wider, far more profound. It's the very foundation of Europe, subtly shifting beneath your feet, infected by the very knowledge and darkness you were sent to eradicate. The invisible enemy is here, not with swords, but with ideas, with whispers of plague and forbidden wisdom. And it feels as though the world you return to is being irrevocably reshaped, not by divine will, but by the very forces you fought against. And you, a silent, scarred witness, are caught right in the epicenter of its unsettling, inevitable spread. You pick up a piece of seasoned oak, meant for kindling, your fingers closing around the rough, dry bark. It's light, almost weightless in your grasp. For so long your hands have known the heavy, familiar weight of a sword hilt, the cold, smooth steel of a dagger, the rough, reassuring leather of a shield strap. They remember the bone-jarring impact, the slick feel of blood, the desperate, unyielding grip of life or death. Now they hold nothing of consequence. This simple piece of wood feels utterly alien, flimsy, almost an insult to the strength and purpose they once commanded. A peculiar emptiness settles in your palms, a phantom ache for the heft and balance of a weapon. A profound disconnect between what your hands were trained to do and what this quiet village life demands. You try to split the wood, picking up the small, well-worn axe that sits near the hearth. It feels wrong in your grip, too small, too light, the balance all off. You swing it, not with the fluid, powerful arc of a battle axe aimed at an enemy's skull, but with an awkward, hesitant movement. The blade glances off the oak with a dull, unconvincing thud, barely scratching the surface. It's a pathetic effort. The strength is still there deep in your shoulders and arms, but the precision, the sharp, instant decision-making, the ingrained, deadly grace of combat is utterly absent, or simply misdirected. Your mind, once a whirlwind of tactical thought and savage instinct, now feels slow, sluggish, struggling to find purpose in such a simple domestic task. Your wife, bent over some mending, casts a fleeting glance at your futile struggle. There's no judgment in her eyes, only a quiet, weary resignation, a silent acknowledgement of the chasm that separates your world from hers. The child, playing quietly with carved wooden figures on the floor, looks up, their innocent gaze briefly lingering on your frustrated, clumsy movements before returning to their game. You feel a flush of shame, a burning embarrassment at your own ineptitude, at the stark, undeniable proof of your uselessness in this world you fought to protect. You, a man who once carved a bloody path through armies, now cannot even split a piece of wood. The axe drops from your hand with a clatter, echoing loudly in the quiet room. Your hands, calloused and scarred, hang uselessly by your sides, feeling heavy, cumbersome, like forgotten tools. They ache with the phantom memory of purpose, the ghost of a sword that is no longer there. The relentless, primal need for action, for vigilance, for the sharp, clear purpose of survival still courses through your veins, a raw, unspent energy with nowhere to go. This idleness, this forced stillness, is a torment far more insidious than any physical wound. It's a slow, internal gnawing, a bitter realization that the skills that kept you alive, that defined you for years, are now not just unwanted but actively detrimental in this gentle, peaceful world. Your very being, honed for war, now feels like a burden, a weapon without an enemy, a soldier without a battle, trapped in a peace that offers no solace, only the crushing, suffocating weight of idle hands and an empty, restless spirit. This is a new kind of prison, carved not from stone and iron, but from the unbearable silence of an unfulfilled purpose. The sharp, rasping sound cuts through the usual evening quiet, a familiar and unsettling melody that draws your attention instantly. Asterisk, shink, S-H-H, hink. It's the sound of steel against stone, not the steady, honest work of the blacksmith, but a hurried, almost desperate sharpening, a private ritual performed away from prying eyes. Your head lifts, your gaze instinctively drawn to the edge of the common green, where a cluster of shadowy figures huddles beneath the sparse branches of an old oak. A cold knot tightens in your gut, a mix of apprehension and a strange, undeniable pull. You recognize them, or rather you recognize their kind, the slumped shoulders, the restless energy beneath the veneer of stillness, the haunted, too bright glint in their eyes that speaks of horrors seen and endured. They are like you. You gravitate towards them, your boots sinking slightly into the damp, cold earth. As you draw closer, the air thickens with the acrid scent of cheap pipe tobacco, the bitter tang of stale ale, and something else, something primal and sharp, the subtle metallic whisper of desperation. Their faces emerge from the deepening twilight, gaunt and scarred, etched with the same weary bitterness you see in your own reflection. They are men from other villages, men who, like you, once wore the cross and wielded the sword, now back in a world that has no place for their hardened hands or their broken spirits. They pass a flask, their movements economical, their eyes constantly scanning, perpetually vigilant, even in this peaceful setting. It's a silent, shared language, a recognition of the unshakable warrior within, the beast that village life cannot tame. You join their perimeter, not speaking, just standing, feeling the subtle tension in the air, the collective unease that crackles between them. One man, a hulking figure with a missing ear, offers you a gulp from his flask, his eyes, dark and knowing, meeting yours with an unspoken challenge and camaraderie. The harsh, burning liquor slides down your throat, a familiar fire that momentarily thaws the persistent chill in your chest. You see the glint of a well-worn dagger hilt peeking from beneath another man's tunic, the heavy, scarred knuckles of a third resting on a concealed axe. These aren't farmers or weavers. These are the wolves, returned to a flock that no longer remembers their fangs, or how to fear them. A low murmur begins, words spoken in hushed tones, almost swallowed by the rising wind. They speak of empty larders, of wives who turn away, of fields they no longer know how to till, of a profound, gnawing boredom that feels like a slow death. But then a new word emerges, whispered with a dangerous excitement. Companies. Not for God, not for king, but for coin. For the sharp, clean purpose of wielding a blade for those who will pay. For the grim satisfaction of using the only skills they still possess. A path. Brutal and uncertain, yet undeniably asterisk a path. It's a desperate solution, born from the bitter soil of abandonment and the restless ache of unspent violence. You feel a grim, chilling sense of belonging, a recognition that this, perhaps, is the true homecoming. Not to the quiet, indifferent hearth, but to the shadowed gathering of men, equally adrift, equally scarred, equally dangerous. The peaceful village, with its soft rhythms and gentle demands, feels further away than the distant Holy Land. Here, among these lost souls, you find a reflection of your own bitter spirit, a confirmation that the war inside you is not yours alone. Europe paid the price for your bitterness, and now, you realize, it will continue to pay, for it has cast out its most dangerous sons, and in their shared despair, they are finding a new, terrible purpose. The scraping of steel continues, a grim promise echoing in the gathering darkness, forging a new, darker destiny for you all. You plunge your hands into the dark, damp earth, the sudden coolness, a stark contrast to the persistent heat that seems to perpetually simmer beneath your skin. The soil is rich, loamy, yielding easily beneath your fingers. It carries a heavy, unmistakable scent of decay and rebirth, of generations of life and death intertwined, a deep, earthy aroma that, for a fleeting moment, feels profoundly ancient and familiar. This is the land your ancestors tilled, the very ground that fed your lineage. Yet as it clings to your scarred hands, it feels utterly alien, a strange, wet substance that holds no comfort, no true connection. Your fingers, once so adept at gripping a sword hilt, at tearing flesh, at staunching blood, now feel clumsy, almost offensive, as they try to coax life from this passive, yielding earth. You grasp the rough, splintered wood of the plow handle, the familiar texture now alien against your calloused palms. It feels insubstantial, fragile, almost a toy compared to the solid, balanced weight of the weapons you once wielded. You lean into it, your shoulders protesting with a familiar ache, and the heavy wooden share grinds into the soil, tearing a shallow furrow. The rhythm is agonizingly slow, deliberately repetitive, a stark counterpoint to the frantic, heart-pounding urgency that defined every waking moment on campaign. Your body honed for sudden bursts of savage violence, for forced marches under scorching sun, rebels against this measured, plodding pace. Each step is a deliberate effort, not of endurance against an enemy, but of resistance against a profound, gnawing boredom that threatens to swallow your very will. The distant lowing of cattle, the rustle of winter bare branches in the wind, the soft rhythmic creak of a nearby water wheel. These are the sounds of peace, of life continuing in its slow, predictable cycle. But to your ears, still attuned to the sharp clang of steel, the desperate cries of men, the sudden, terrifying silence of an ambush, they sound like a mocking whisper, a profound emptiness. You stare at the newly turned earth, the dark, moist soil stretching out in a long, unbroken line behind you, and your mind, against your will, twists it. It becomes not a promise of harvest, but a trench, a grave, a defensive ditch hastily dug, where men once huddled, bleeding and afraid. The scent of damp earth momentarily shifts, taking on the metallic tang of old blood, the acrid bite of fear. A fellow villager, a younger man whose hands are smooth and unscarred by battle, works in the adjacent field, his movements fluid, efficient, a seamless extension of the earth he tends. He glances at you, his eyes holding a fleeting, unreadable expression. Pity? Confusion? Before turning back to his task, his rhythm undisturbed, you feel a profound, burning shame, a visceral sense of incompetence. The sun, a pale, distant orb in the cold sky, offers a gentle warmth on your back, But it's not the relentless, unforgiving blaze of the desert sun, the one that burned away weakness and demanded constant, brutal vigilance. This sun feels weak, almost anemic, a pale imitation of the fiery world you left behind. You grip the plow handle tighter, your knuckles white, trying to force your hands, your body, your very soul, back into this ancient, peaceful rhythm. But it's a futile struggle. The earth, which once sustained you, now feels cold, unyielding, fundamentally disconnected from the warrior you've become. This isn't your ground anymore. This isn't your life. The serenity of the fields, the promise of growth, the simple, honest labor of a serf. These are all foreign to you now. You are a man built for destruction, forged in the fires of war, and this quiet, fertile earth holds no place, no true purpose, for the bitter, broken thing you brought home. You stand at the edge of the Lord's manor, the crisp autumn wind carrying the acrid scent of burning leaves, and the distant, muffled sound of a hunting horn. The manor house itself looms, a formidable silhouette against the bruised purple of the twilight sky, its stone walls cold and indifferent. It's the same manor you left years ago, the seat of the Lord you swore fealty to, the one who sent you with blessings and promises of reward upon your return. But now it feels less like a protective bulwark, and more like a symbol of impenetrable indifference, its grand, unyielding facade reflecting the cold, hard truth of your abandonment. You feel a growing bitterness welling up in your gut, a familiar, acrid taste rising in your mouth. You remember the impassioned speeches, the solemn vows of support for your family, the assurance of land and status upon a victorious return. You remember believing, truly believing, in the righteousness of the cause, in the honor of your Lord's word. But now, standing here, a gaunt and scarred stranger in your own land, the hollowness of those promises rings with a chilling clarity. No land has been offered, no reward granted, no word of welcome or gratitude extended. Only the quiet, unsettling expectation that you will simply return to the fields, to the life you left behind, as if the intervening years of brutal sacrifice never happened. A stable hand, a young boy whose face is clean and unlined by hardship, leads a sleek, well-fed hunting dog from the stables, whistling a cheerful, tuneless melody. He glances at you, his eyes wide with a fleeting curiosity, then quickly looks away, a subtle tension in his posture betraying a quiet, ingrained deference, perhaps even a touch of fear, for the scarred, silent man who stands vigil by the manor gates. You see in his innocent, unburdened face the stark contrast to your own weathered visage, a powerful reminder of the gulf between those who stayed and those who went. Your hands, still clenched into fists, ache with a restless, unspent energy, a simmering resentment that feels like a cold fire burning deep within your bones. The light fades, and the shadows lengthen, stretching from the manor walls like grasping fingers, enveloping the fields, the village, and you, the forgotten warrior. The air grows heavy with the encroaching night, and with it, a suffocating sense of injustice. You didn't just fight for God, you fought for this land, for this Lord, for the promise of a better life upon your return. You shed blood, endured unimaginable suffering, faced death countless times, all under the banner of His name and the cross. And what have you returned to? Indifference. Oblivion. The stark, brutal truth that your sacrifice was merely a transaction, and one for which the payment has been withheld, or perhaps simply deemed worthless. You turn your back on the manor, its imposing structure now an emblem of betrayal. The bitter wind whips around you, chilling you to the bone, but it's a cold that feels almost secondary to the deeper internal chill of disillusioned rage. The peace you came home to isn't a balm. It's a hollow echo of what you were promised, a landscape of broken vows. Europe, in its comfortable complacency, has forgotten its Crusaders, abandoned them to their scars and their demons. And you, a man who gave everything, are left to harvest the bitter fruit of a lord's broken promise. A heavy, unpalatable yield that promises no sustenance, only an ever-deepening sense of resentment. The land, once a source of pride, now feels like a prison, and the Lord's manor, once a symbol of authority, now stands as a monument to profound, unforgivable neglect. You're trying to repair a broken fence post, your calloused hands fumbling with the unfamiliar tools. The wood, old and weathered, is dry and brittle, threatening to splinter with every tentative strike of the hammer. A faint, dusty scent of old timber rises as you tap, a dry, almost choking aroma that reminds you not of the robust forests of home, but of the sun-bleached, splintered siege engines that lay broken and discarded after a lost battle. Each tentative blow against the nail sends a jarring vibration up your arm, and the nail itself, thin and bent, refuses to penetrate the stubborn wood. It's a frustrating, futile exercise, a microcosm of your entire existence since returning. You step back, your shoulders aching with the unfamiliar strain, and gaze at the sagging fence, its broken slats a testament to neglect and disrepair. It feels like a reflection of everything around you, a visible symptom of a deeper, unseen rot. The effort, the simple, mundane task of mending, feels utterly meaningless, a desperate attempt to patch a wound that goes far deeper than splintered wood. You remember the exhilarating rush of building a temporary barricade, the frantic, collective effort of men working as one against a common, visible enemy. There was a purpose, a clear, immediate goal, and the tangible outcome of survival. Here there is only endless, solitary toil, a Sisyphean task against decay and indifference. Your wife emerges from the cottage, carrying a small basket of gathered herbs, her brow furrowed with a quiet worry that seems to have become her permanent expression. She doesn't speak, but her eyes, when they meet yours, hold a silent question, a desperate plea for something you can no longer give. You see the faint lines of fatigue around her eyes, the subtle slump in her shoulders, and a fresh wave of bitterness washes over you. You were supposed to return a hero, a provider, a protector. Instead, you are a burden, a silent, grim shadow in your own home, unable to even mend a simple fence. The image of the valiant crusader, the noble warrior, shatters around you like brittle glass, revealing only a hollow, useless man. You pick up a fresh piece of timber, the grain running strong and true, and try again. This time, you grip the hammer tighter, with a flash of the old, desperate resolve. But the wood, for all its promise, is still wood, passive and unyielding. The nail bends again, then snaps with a sharp, disappointing crack that echoes in the quiet afternoon. A sharp splinter, driven by the force, digs painfully into your thumb. You stare at it, a bead of dark blood welling up, a small, insignificant wound that in this moment feels like a profound betrayal. This world, this peaceful existence you fought for, feels like a cruel, elaborate deception. The simple act of living, of building, of mending is alien to you. Your purpose, your identity, was forged in the heat of battle, in the brutal clarity of life and death. Now, stripped of that context, you are lost, adrift in a sea of meaningless tasks and unfulfilled expectations. The splinter in your thumb, a tiny, nagging pain, feels like the perfect metaphor for a deeper wound, a constant reminder of the fragility of your new, unwanted reality. The tools of peace are clumsy in your warrior hands, and the very hope of finding a place in this world feels like splintered wood, sharp and painful, offering no true anchor, only superficial cuts, and a constant, aching sense of uselessness. You are home, yes, but profoundly, irrevocably broken, and the efforts to mend yourself like this fence seem destined to fail. The weight of the single copper coin in your palm feels almost insultingly light. You turn it over, the worn effigy of the king barely discernible beneath the grime and the passage of countless hands. This small disk, with its meager value, is now a more trustworthy currency than the grand, soaring promises of salvation you once carried in your heart, more reliable than the solemn vows of loyalty from a lord who has forgotten your name. The faint metallic tang on your fingertips, mixed with the perpetual scent of damp earth and stale bread, is the only honest aroma left in this world, a bitter smell of tangible, transactional reality. You watch a young farmer, his face guileless and open, attempt to haggle with a merchant over the price of a small bag of grain. The farmer's voice is earnest, tinged with a desperate hope, a belief that honest work should earn a fair wage. But you, watching from the shadowed corner of the market, see only the merchant's calculating eye, the subtle sneer hidden beneath a practiced smile, the cold glint of profit in his gaze. You know that look. You've seen it on the faces of warlords bargaining for mercenaries, on the faces of priests promising absolution for coin. The farmer will leave poorer, believing in some illusion of fairness, while the merchant grows richer, secure in the brutal logic of advantage. Your lips curl in a silent, humorless smile. Naivete, you now understand, is the most expensive luxury of all. Later, huddled with a few other veterans outside the tavern, the air thick with the acrid scent of their shared pipe smoke, you find a different kind of understanding. One man, his face a crisscross of scars, recounts a tale of being cheated by a local miller. He tells it with a dry, flat delivery, devoid of anger, only a profound, weary contempt. You nod, a silent, knowing acknowledgement. You understand that the words are not a plea for sympathy, but a reaffirmation of a shared truth, that everyone is out for themselves, that faith and honor are but flimsy cloaks for ambition and greed, and that the only reliable currency is suspicion. The ale, dark and bitter, warms your throat, but it's the quiet, cynical communion with these men that truly offers a perverse solace. Here, your bitterness isn't a burden. It's a badge, a shared language, a mark of those who have seen the true face of the world and survived. You offer a thought, a sharp, cutting observation about the Lord's empty promises of land and bounty for returning Crusaders, and a ripple of harsh, joyless laughter echoes among the small group. Your words are not gentle, not hopeful, but they hold a value here. They are honest. They are real. This shared cynicism, this hard-won disillusionment, has become your most potent asset. It allows you to see through the pretty lies, the hollow assurances, the flimsy veneers of piety and goodwill that still blind the unscarred. It's a shield, yes, but also a weapon, allowing you to navigate a world that once betrayed your deepest beliefs. The coin in your pocket is meager, but the currency of your cynicism, sharpened by war and polished by bitter experience, feels infinitely more valuable. It's the grim, unshakable truth you brought home, the only truth that still feels real, the bitter payment for your unreturned faith. The straw mattress rustles beneath you, a dry, whispering sound in the heavy silence of the night. You shift, trying to find a comfortable position, but every part of your body feels stiff, protesting, etched with the phantom pains of old wounds. The air is cold, damp, carrying the scent of wood smoke, and the lingering, almost metallic smell of fear that seems to cling to your own skin. Beside you, your wife lies still, her breathing shallow and even, a quiet presence in the darkness. You reach out, your hand moving slowly, tentatively, towards her. Your fingers brush against the warm, soft wool of her nightdress, then against the smooth, yielding skin of her arm. It's a touch that was once familiar, cherished, a source of deep comfort and connection. But now, it feels strange, almost alien. Her skin, though warm, seems to recoil almost imperceptibly at your touch, a subtle, involuntary tightening of her muscles beneath your fingertips. It's not a conscious rejection, you realize, but an instinctual withdrawal, like a wild thing sensing danger. A cold, sharp pang of something akin to grief shoots through your chest, a bitter taste rising in your mouth. You can feel the subtle shift in her breathing, the shallow intake of air that tells you she is no longer truly asleep, but merely feigning it. The silence stretches, thick and heavy, laden with unspoken words, with years of brutal separation and the unspeakable horrors you've carried home. You want to speak, to murmur her name, to offer some word of comfort, some bridge across the vast, cold chasm that has opened between you. But your throat feels impossibly tight, choked with the dust of forgotten battles, with the screams of dying men, with the hollow echoes of your own shattered faith. What words could possibly erase the chasm? What touch could bridge such a profound, soul-deep distance? Your hand, scarred and calloused, feels impossibly rough against her delicate skin, a brutal reminder of the weapon it became, of the deeds it performed. It feels like the touch of a stranger, a ghost from a past life, a man she no longer knows, perhaps never truly knew. The image of your own gaunt, haunted reflection flashes in your mind, the face of a man irrevocably altered, broken. You sense her fear, her apprehension, a subtle tension that radiates from her still form, making the air between you crackle with an unspoken dread. It's not just the physical scars you carry, it's the invisible ones, the ones etched deep into your soul that have transformed you into something alien, something she cannot, will not embrace. You slowly withdraw your hand, the small, almost imperceptible movement feeling like a final, definitive severing. The warmth of her skin, the soft wool recedes, leaving your fingers cold and empty once more. The silence returns, heavier now, filled with the undeniable truth of a connection severed, perhaps irrevocably. The bed, once a shared sanctuary, now feels like a vast, desolate plain, with an impassable gulf stretching between you. You lie there, staring into the impenetrable darkness, acutely aware of the distance, the profound, aching loneliness. The touch of a husband, once a source of warmth and intimacy, has become a cold, chilling reminder of all that was lost, of the man you were, and the man you can never be again. And in that desolate quiet, you realize with a brutal clarity that the war has not only taken your youth, your faith, and your peace, but also the very possibility of love, leaving only an empty, yearning ache in its wake. You watch her from the doorway, your own hands, scarred and idle, hanging uselessly by your sides. She kneels by the hearth, stoking the embers with a small, iron poker, her movements economical, practiced, imbued with a quiet, unyielding competence. The scent of wood smoke, clean and sharp, rises, mixed with the faint, almost clinical smell of the lye soap she uses for washing. A crisp, clean aroma that speaks of constant vigilance against dirt and decay. Her back is straight, her shoulders broad, not with the aggressive strength of a warrior, but with the enduring resilience of a woman who has borne burdens alone, silently, for years. You notice the subtle flexing of the muscles in her forearms as she works, a testament to countless hours of grinding grain, drawing water, chopping, kindling, all the tasks that now feel impossibly foreign and arduous to your own war-ravaged body. The small cottage, once a shared space of laughter and simpler comforts, now hums with the unspoken rhythm of her solitary control. Every pot, every bowl, every woven cloth seems to have its place, a silent testament to an order she has painstakingly built and maintained in your absence. There's no frantic energy, no desperate struggle, just a steady, deliberate flow, a system perfected through necessity. You see the small, intricate repairs she's made, a patched blanket, a mended tear in the straw mattress, a carefully whittled replacement peg for a loose shelf. Each tiny act of upkeep, each instance of her quiet foresight, speaks volumes, constructing an invisible, impenetrable wall around her self-sufficiency. This isn't just a home anymore. It's a fortress, built brick by painstaking brick from years of solitary survival, a stronghold of her own making, secured against the chaos that defined your life, and now, against your very presence. Her gaze, when it lifts, is brief, darting, never quite meeting yours, but sliding past, as if you are a phantom, an unwelcome disruption to her carefully constructed world. There's no anger, no accusation, but a profound, almost terrifying sense of distance, a quiet resolution that has hardened over time, like seasoned oak. You are an element she must now account for, a variable in an equation she had long since solved without you. The child, clinging to her skirt, watches you, then her, then back to you, their small, uncertain face mirroring the immense, unbridgeable gulf that stretches between you and this woman who was once your wife. You realize she didn't just survive your absence. She thrived. She adapted. She became a complete entity unto herself, creating a life that no longer has an inherent space for the man who returned. The fire in the hearth crackles softly, its warmth pushing outwards, but it cannot penetrate the cold, hard reality of this new dynamic. The silence that fills the gaps between her efficient movements is not the empty quiet of an abandoned home, but the solid, unyielding silence of an established order, a life that has learned to function, and function well, without your touch, your voice, your protection. You stand there, a warrior returned, and feel utterly disarmed, rendered impotent by the sheer, undeniable strength of her quiet, self-made world. Her fortress of self-reliance, built not from stone and mortar, but from necessity and silent fortitude, is more formidable than any castle wall you ever breached. And you, the prodigal husband, find yourself on the outside, a stranger looking in, with no siege engines, no strategy, and no hope of truly entering the world she has so effectively, so thoroughly, rebuilt alone. The first thing you feel is the subtle tremor in the ground, a low, guttural rumble that travels up through the soles of your worn boots. It's followed almost immediately by a sound that makes every muscle in your body tense, every nerve prickle with an ancient, battle-honed instinct. The distant, unmistakable crackle and roar of a large fire, not the gentle, comforting pop of a hearth, but the hungry, consuming blaze of destruction. Then, the smell hits you, a thick, acrid cloud of wood smoke, not clean and sweet, but laced with the sickeningly metallic tang of burning thatch, the sharp, pungent odor of scorched textiles, and something else, something deeply disturbing and primal, the faint, sweet, yet utterly horrifying scent of burning flesh. Your breath catches in your throat, held captive by the sudden, overwhelming familiarity of it. This is the smell of war, brought home. You run, your stiff joints protesting with every stride. But your body, despite its pain, remembers the urgency, the desperate, unthinking drive towards the source of chaos. As you crest the hill overlooking the next village, the sight rips a raw, guttural gasp from your chest. Flames, immense and ravenous, devour half a dozen cottages, their thatched roofs collapsing inwards with terrifying speed, sending showers of sparks high into the bruised twilight sky. Black smoke billows upward, a monstrous churning column that smears across the horizon, carrying with it the screams. Not the screams of animals, but the high-pitched, desperate cries of women, the terrified shrieks of children, and the guttural roars of men, all blending into a horrifying symphony of terror that plunges you back into the heart of 1,000 lost battles. The air around you is suddenly charged, thick with the smell of panic and despair. Your hand instinctively reaches for a sword that isn't there, your fingers clenching into a phantom grip, muscles twitching with the ghost of purpose. You see figures moving in the flickering light of the inferno, dark, brutal shapes, wielding crude weapons, their movements devoid of mercy. And then you recognize them. Not foreign warriors, not the infidels you once fought, but men like you, men in rough European garb, some of them wearing tatters of old Crusader tunics, their faces grim, their eyes hard and utterly devoid of compassion. They are the free companies, the bitter harvest of Europe's neglect, the broken men you saw gathering just days ago, now unleashed. A young woman stumbles from a burning cottage, her hair singed, her face streaked with soot and tears, cradling a screaming infant. A rough hand grabs her, pulling her back towards the inferno, her cries abruptly cut short. Your blood runs cold. This is not the noble, righteous war you were told you fought. This is brutal, senseless predation, a feast of wolves on their own flock. The heat from the burning homes, though distant, feels scorching on your skin, a familiar, terrible warmth that once signified a hard-won victory, but now only heralds a profound, unspeakable betrayal. You stand frozen, caught between the terrifying familiarity of the scene and the shocking, brutal reality of its perpetrators. The unholy smell of burning homes, of innocent life consumed by fire and violence, fills your lungs, sickening you. This isn't just a raid, it's a testament, a stark, undeniable proof that the bitterness you carry, the rage simmering in the hearts of returning Crusaders, has found an outlet, a terrible, destructive purpose. Europe, you realize, has welcomed home its broken sons, and now those sons are tearing it apart, village by bloody village. The bitter truth burns hotter than any flame. The war didn't end in the Holy Land. It merely came home, and it's now devouring everything you once knew. The sharp, sudden snap of a twig, impossibly loud in the hushed night, freezes you mid-step on the familiar path leading back to your own village. It's not the gentle rustle of a badger, or the playful scamper of a rabbit. No, the sound is deliberate, heavy, followed by the faint, rhythmic creak of leather, and the dull, almost musical chime of unseen mail. Then you smell it. The familiar, unsettling scent of unwashed men, of stale sweat and cheap, potent wine, overlaid with the acrid stench of distant wood smoke, the same smoke that clawed at your throat just hours ago. Your gut twists into a cold, hard knot. They are here. You press yourself into the deep shadow of an ancient oak, your breath catching, held captive in your chest. Your eyes, accustomed to scanning endless, featureless deserts for movement, now meticulously sweep the familiar contours of your village green. And there they are, not a shadowy band of anonymous figures, but a ragged company of men, perhaps 20 strong, moving with a chilling, predatory stealth towards the first cluster of cottages. Moonlight, thin and watery, glints off the crude iron tips of spears, the worn edges of swords, and the dark, knowing eyes beneath their heavy brows. These are the faces you saw at the edge of the other burning village, the faces you saw gathering by the oak on the common green, now brought directly to your doorstep. The air thickens with a palpable fear, a cold dread that seeps into your very bones, deeper than any winter night. You can hear the distant, muffled barking of a watchdog, quickly silenced with a brutal efficiency you recognize all too well. A small child, peering from a narrow gap in a cottage door, whimpers softly, quickly pulled back into the darkness by a desperate hand. You see the faces of your neighbors, pale and terrified, pressed against window slits, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and growing horror. They are sheep, trapped and bewildered, facing a pack of wolves they never knew existed among them, wolves dressed in the very cloth of their own kind. Then, a flicker of movement, clearer now. One of them, a broad-shouldered man, steps into a patch of moonlight. His face, etched with scars, is grim and set, his eyes hard and utterly devoid of mercy. And, suddenly, with a sickening lurch of your stomach you recognize him, not by name, perhaps, but by the jagged scar that bisects his left eyebrow, or the way he carries his body, a subtle, almost familiar swagger. You remember him. He was with you, in the East. A fellow Crusader, one of the countless men who stood beside you, swore the same oaths, fought the same battles. The realization hits you like a blow. The enemy is not just men like you. The enemy sears you. Or rather, the dark, broken reflection of what you could have become, what you are, deep down. A cold, bitter taste fills your mouth, a mix of ash and betrayal. All the years of fighting distant infidels, of enduring unimaginable suffering for a holy cause, have led to this. Your own kind, the Crusaders, the supposed protectors of Christendom, have returned home not as saviors, but as predators. Their bitterness turned inwards, devouring their own. The silence of your village, once a symbol of peace, now feels like a profound, echoing scream, a testament to the price Europe is paying. You watch them advance, an army of ghosts from your past, a living, breathing embodiment of all the rage and despair you carry. And in that terrifying moment you understand the gates are not just breached, they were opened from within, by the very men who were meant to guard them. The war is not just home, it has consumed home. The sharp, cracking sound of a whip cuts through the pre-dawn chill, echoing like a gunshot across the stunned silence of the village square. It's not the familiar snap of a farmer urging on his ox, but a brutal, deliberate strike, followed by a grunt of pain and a choked gasp. The air, already thick with the acrid scent of lingering wood smoke and fresh fear, suddenly tastes metallic, raw. Your muscles tense, an involuntary reflex, your heart slamming against your ribs like a captured bird. This isn't the gentle law of the Lord or the quiet customs of generations. This is a new, harsher justice, delivered with leather and brute force. You stand hidden in the narrow alley between two cottages, peering out at the scene unfolding in the flickering torchlight. A cluster of your fellow villagers, pale and trembling, are herded together, their faces slack with a mixture of terror and disbelief. Before them stands one of the Free Company, a hulking figure with a scarred face, his eyes cold and devoid of anything resembling human warmth. He holds the whip, its long, cruel tail still snaking on the damp earth. Beside him, others from the company patrol the square, their weapons held loosely, casually, yet with a menace that needs no words. The low murmur of their voices, a mix of harsh commands and guttural laughter, sends a fresh wave of ice down your spine. One of the villagers, an old man you've known your entire life, falls to his knees, his hands clasped together in desperate supplication. He tries to speak, his voice a hoarse, pleading whisper, but a swift, brutal kick to his side silences him, sending him sprawling into the mud. No one moves to help. No one dares. The raw, animal fear in their eyes is a visible, tangible thing, a heavy blanket that smothers all courage, all defiance. You feel it too, a cold, creeping paralysis that locks your limbs, even as an ancient warrior's fury begins to stir in the bitter depths of your gut. Your hand, instinctively reaching for a phantom sword, closes on empty air. The familiar weight is absent, replaced by the hollow ache of impotence. You remember the old laws, the established order, the slow, predictable rhythms of justice. However flawed, they were a comfort, a structure, a promise of consequences, even for the powerful. But those laws are gone now. They've been swept away by the raw, unfettered power of these broken men. Men who know only the brutal, immediate law of the blade and the whip, forged in the crucible of distant wars. The whip cracks again, a sharp, deafening report that rips through the night, a chilling declaration of this new authority. The sound reverberates in your chest, a physical blow that shakes you to your core. You see the silent, desperate understanding dawning on the faces of your neighbors. Their world has irrevocably changed. Their customs, their rights, their very lives are now forfeit, subject to the whims of men forged in savagery. And you, a warrior, a man who knows this kind of brutal law all too well, can only watch, a prisoner of your own battle-honed instincts, unable to offer solace or protection. This isn't just a raid, you realize. This is the installation of a new regime, A chilling, terrifying reordering of everything you once held dear, and it's being enforced with the simple, undeniable snap of a cruel, unfeeling whip, the sharp, guttural bark of a command, delivered in a language you've only recently remembered, slices through the morning mist, followed by the clatter of a heavy boot against loose stone. It's not the familiar, plodding rhythm of village life, but the crisp, brutal efficiency of a military order, terse and undeniable. The air, still damp and cold from the night, now carries the strong, almost cloying scent of cheap, unwashed leather, stale sweat, and the underlying metallic tang of fear, a smell you know intimately. This is the scent of a camp, of a conquered town, not the quiet, familiar aroma of your home village. The very ground beneath your feet, once firm and predictable, feels suddenly alien, trembling with the unspoken tension that now permeates every shadow, every corner of this once peaceful place. You press further into the cover of the old shed, your eyes, wide and unblinking, fixed on the village square. There, where the children once played and elders gathered, the free company now reigns. They move with a chilling, predatory ease, their crude, patched armor reflecting the weak morning light. One man, a hulking brute with a scarred eye, slams a fist onto a wooden table, scattering a merchant's meager wares across the muddy ground. There's no negotiation, no appeal to custom or right, only the blunt, undeniable assertion of force. He points to a pile of sacks, then to another man from his company, whose movements are sharp, unhesitating, as he gathers the goods. The merchant, his face slack with terror and disbelief, can only watch, his hands trembling, a silent plea in his eyes that goes unheard, unseen by these hardened men. This is not theft, not simple banditry. This is the cold, calculated requisition of supplies, the ruthless logic of an army in foreign territory, now applied to their own homeland. You see it, with a chilling clarity that turns your gut to ice. The way they distribute guards, the strategic positioning of their sentinels, the casual, almost bored cruelty with which they enforce their will. It's the same brutal pragmatism you witnessed in the Levant, the same unyielding principle of survival and dominance. There, it was necessary, a shield against annihilation. Here, it is an invading plague, a cancer devouring the very fabric of your world. You recognize the subtle shift in their eyes, the constant scanning, the predatory calm that only comes from living on a knife edge. It's the logic of the desert, where mercy is weakness, and only the strong, the ruthless, truly survive. It's the logic that shaped you too. A low, despairing moan from a villager, quickly stifled, hangs heavy in the air. The sounds of their suffering, the sight of their terror, now feels strangely, sickeningly familiar, mirroring the cries of distant populations you once helped to subjugate. The bitterness that had settled deep in your soul intensifies, sharp and acrid on your tongue. All your years of fighting, of enduring, of sacrificing in a faraway land were supposedly to protect this quiet, vulnerable Europe. But instead, you and men like you, the broken, the discarded, have brought the very methods of the enemy, the harsh, unforgiving logic of the Levant, back to roost. Your hand, trembling with unspent fury and a profound, aching despair, still instinctively seeks the non-existent weight of your sword. You are a sentinel of this new, terrible age, a bitter witness to the devastating truth that the Crusades have not only shattered your own soul, but unleashed a far more dangerous enemy upon Europe itself. the brutal, unsparing logic of its own forgotten, broken sons. And in their cold, efficient cruelty, you see a terrifying reflection of the man you too have become. You feel the small, fragile weight against your side, the warm, soft pressure of your child's head tucked against your arm as they sleep. Their breathing is light, even, a soft, innocent sigh that barely disturbs the suffocating silence of the night. Outside, the sounds of the free company are muted but ever present. A distant, guttural shout, the heavy thud of a boot, the chilling, rhythmic clank of unseen weapons. Each sound sends a fresh jolt of ice through your veins, tightening your muscles, even as you try to remain utterly still, a rigid, unmoving bulwark against the terror that presses in from all sides. You want to shield this small, precious life with your entire being, to absorb every blow, every threat. But your arm, scarred and trembling with unspent adrenaline, feels hollow, useless, a mere empty shell. Your gaze falls upon the child's face, illuminated faintly by the dying embers of the hearth. Their features are soft, unlined, innocent, utterly devoid of the fear and bitter knowledge that has become your constant companion. You remember this face, or rather the face it once was, a blurred memory from before the war, before the searing heat of the desert, before the endless march of broken men. You try to find a reflection of yourself in their peaceful slumber, some echo of the man you were, the father you dreamed of being. But all you see is profound vulnerability, a terrifying fragility that claws at your gut. Your own eyes, you know, are hard, hollow, etched with a constant, weary vigilance that would only bring them terror. This is the flaw in your gaze. You cannot look at them with the uncomplicated love of a father, only with the haunted, cynical awareness of a warrior who knows too much, has seen too much, and is now powerless to protect them from the monsters that were once his comrades, from the very darkness he brought home. A sudden, sharp cry slices through the night from further down the village path, a woman's terrified shriek quickly muffled into silence. The child stirs, a soft whimper escaping their lips, their small body tensing instinctively against yours. Your heart leaps into your throat, a desperate, choking beat. You hold your breath, forcing yourself to stay absolutely still, to radiate a false calm that you do not feel, praying that the sounds of suffering will not pierce the fragile cocoon of their sleep, that they will not fully awaken to the nightmare that has consumed your world. Your hand, reaching to stroke their hair, pauses, hovering inches away. Your touch, you fear, would be too rough, too cold, too scarred, a physical manifestation of the brutality that now surrounds them. What comfort could you offer, you, who stands on the very precipice of becoming one of the predators, or a victim of your own kind? The child settles again, their small breath resuming its gentle rhythm, utterly unaware of the invisible war raging within you, or the very real one closing in outside the thin wooden walls. You stare at their innocent face, and a profound, aching despair settles in your chest. You are a warrior, yes, but your skills, honed for distant battlefields, are useless here. They offer no protection against the terror wrought by men like you, men broken by the same war, now turned inward. The truth is a bitter taste on your tongue. The father's gaze is not one of strength or protection, but of profound impotence, a silent scream of a man who brought the wolf to the door, and now can only watch as it circles his child. The Crusader returned, but the father, the protector, is lost, shattered by the very crusade he fought, leaving only a haunted, broken shadow to bear witness to the ruin. The heavy, guttural sound of a man being dragged echoes from the village square, followed by a sharp, contemptuous laugh. It's the sound of power, brutally asserted, a sound that makes your own blood run cold and then burn with a bitter, impotent fury. You're still sheltering your child, their small hand instinctively gripping your tunic, their soft skin pressing against your chest, but your focus is elsewhere, fixed on the horrifying tableau unfolding just beyond the thin wooden wall of your home. You hear the panicked whimper of another villager, quickly silenced by a rough command, and the distinct, chilling clink of a coin pouch, followed by a triumphant, sneering comment about payment. Your mind, against your will, races back to distant battlefields, to the desperate plundering of fallen cities, to the cold, hard calculus of survival, where coin and loot were the only true measures of worth, the only tangible rewards for unimaginable suffering. You remember the simmering resentment among your comrades, the unspoken fury at the rich lords and the pious priests who had promised glory and spiritual absolution, yet offered little in the way of real sustenance or security. You remember the growing, bitter understanding that the only true gain in that brutal land was what you could take with your own scarred hands, by force, by cunning, by the sheer unyielding will to survive. That logic, that raw, brutal understanding, now echoes in the cruel laughter from the square. A sudden, jarring thump against your cottage wall makes your child jump, a small, terrified cry escaping their lips. You pull them closer, your body tensing, every muscle coiled, ready to spring, though for what purpose you don't know. Your eyes, accustomed to scanning for threats in the shadows, are wide and unblinking, fixed on the unseen danger. You can almost taste the fear in the air, a metallic tang that mixes with the acrid scent of wood smoke and the raw, unwashed smell of the mercenaries. The anger, the profound, burning bitterness that has festered within you since your return, now feels like a physical presence, a scorching heat in your gut. It's not just anger for your neighbors, for the innocent. It's anger at the system, at the promises, at the world that took your youth, your faith, and your humanity, and then cast you aside. You feel your child's small, trembling body against yours, and a different kind of horror, a more profound despair washes over you. What will they inherit? Not the quiet peace you dreamed of, not the stable world you left to protect. They will inherit this. This chaos, this lawlessness, this cynical brutality wrought by men like you, men who were abandoned, men who were broken. The Crusades, you realize with a sickening clarity, have not just brought back exotic spices and new ideas. They have brought back a deep, corrosive resentment, a raw, unyielding bitterness that has infected the very heart of Europe, festering until it burst forth as this terrible, self-devouring violence. The distant sounds of pillaging continue, a terrifying lullaby for a child who should know only peace. You hold your small, vulnerable child tighter, your arms a desperate, flimsy shield. You, the returning Crusader, now see the full, terrible circle. You were sent to fight a war in a distant land, and in doing so, you helped to sow the seeds of a far more destructive war at home, a war that your own children will now be forced to endure. The inheritance of resentment is not just yours, it is theirs, a heavy, bitter legacy passed down through the generations, a testament to the unforgivable price of Europe's indifference. And in the face of this brutal truth, all your warrior's strength, all your battle-hardened resolve, feels utterly, profoundly useless. The heavy, ornate doors of the monastery creak shut behind you with a solemn thud, instantly muffling the distant, chaotic sounds of the ravaged village. A profound silence descends, thick and immediate, wrapping around you like a shroud. It's not the familiar, heavy quiet of your own home, nor the brief, stunned silence of a battlefield before the next assault. This is different. This is the deafening silence of the cloister, a deliberate, sacred absence of worldly noise, intended to foster contemplation and prayer. But to your ears, still ringing with the screams of the villagers and the brutal laughter of the free company, it feels like a physical pressure, an unbearable weight that presses in on your skull, threatening to crush the last vestiges of your sanity. The air, cool and damp, carries the faint, medicinal scent of herbs and aged parchment, overlaid with the ever-present, cloying sweetness of ancient incense. It's a clean, almost sterile aroma, utterly devoid of the metallic tang of blood or the acrid stench of smoke that has clung to you for so long. You stand in the long, arched corridor of the cloister, your heavy boots sounding like thunderclaps on the polished stone floor, each step a jarring intrusion into the hallowed quiet. Sunlight, filtered through narrow, high windows, casts stark, ethereal beams across the worn flagstones, illuminating dust motes dancing like forgotten spirits. You see monks moving in the periphery of your vision, silent figures clad in simple robes, their heads bowed, their footsteps barely audible. They move with a deliberate, unhurried grace, their faces serene, detached, utterly indifferent to the turmoil that has erupted beyond these thick, protective walls. Their peaceful, ordered existence feels like an obscene mockery of the brutal, chaotic reality that has consumed your life, and now, your home. Your gaze falls upon the intricate frescoes adorning the walls, depicting scenes of saints in rapturous prayer, of martyrs enduring unspeakable torment with beatific smiles. Their suffering, rendered in vibrant otherworldly colors, feels distant, abstract, utterly divorced from the raw, visceral agony you've witnessed, the agony you've inflicted. You remember the fervent prayers you offered on distant battlefields, the desperate pleas for divine intervention, the unwavering belief in a benevolent God who would protect the righteous. But those prayers, you recall with a bitter, chilling clarity, were never answered. The God depicted here, serene and transcendent, feels like a cruel, indifferent illusion, a phantom of a faith that abandoned you and your comrades to slaughter and despair. A low, resonant bell tolls somewhere in the distance, its slow, measured peal marking the passing of another hour, another moment of detached, monastic devotion. Each chime reverberates through the profound silence, a heavy, mournful note that echoes the hollow emptiness in your own chest. You feel profoundly out of place, a grotesque anomaly in this sanctuary of peace. Your scarred hands, instinctively clenching into fists, feel rough, violent, almost blasphemous in this sacred space. The weight of your sins, the burden of the horrors you've witnessed and committed, presses down on you, a suffocating force that no amount of prayer, no amount of quiet contemplation can possibly absolve. The deafening silence of the cloister is not a balm, not a sanctuary. It is a mirror, reflecting back the terrible truth of your own shattered soul, the profound, unbridgeable chasm between the warrior you've become and the man you once were, a man who once believed in the solace of such a place. Here, in this hallowed quiet, the bitterness intensifies, a raw, burning agony. You are a ghost, wandering through a world that has no place for your kind, not even in its most sacred corners. The peace offered within these walls is a peace that feels utterly, terrifyingly empty. A peace you can never truly attain. The very air of the cloister, once a sanctuary, now feels like a physical cage. Its silence, a suffocating pressure that clamps down on your skull. Your ears, accustomed to the constant din of battle, the shouts, the screams, the clash of steel, now ache with a profound absence of noise. Every rustle of a monk's robe, every distant muffled cough, feels like a sudden, violent intrusion, jarring your hyper-vigilant senses. This isn't the rest you craved, the tranquil solace of a peaceful mind. No, this quiet is a torment, a vast, echoing void that allows no escape from the ceaseless, internal clamor of your own memories, the unbidden images that flash behind your eyes like lightning in a storm. You pace the cold, polished stone of the cloister walk, your heavy boots a jarring counterpoint to the quiet reverence of the place. Each step resonates, a hollow echo that follows you, mimicking the emptiness in your chest. You try to focus on the intricate patterns of the arched windows, the serene faces of the carved saints, anything to anchor yourself in this world of manufactured peace. But your mind refuses to be tamed. Instead, it conjures the swirling dust of the desert, the relentless, scorching sun on your face, the metallic tang of blood in your mouth, the desperate, primal joy of a kill. Those memories, brutal and terrifying, now feel almost comforting in their raw, undeniable intensity, a stark contrast to the bland, muted despair that pervades this place. A monk, his face serene and unlined, passes you, his gaze placid, seemingly oblivious to the storm raging within your eyes. He carries a heavy tome, his fingers stained with ink, a testament to a life spent in quiet study and contemplation. His existence feels utterly alien, a world away from the desperate, moment-to-moment struggle for survival that has defined your every breath for years. You feel a surge of bitter contempt, then a cold, creeping envy. He has known no such battles, no such loss, no such profound, soul-deep shattering. His peace, you realize, is built on an ignorance you can never reclaim, a purity you can never attain. The silence stretches, unbroken, save for the rhythmic crunch of your boots and the frantic, internal drumming of your own tormented heart. This peace, you realize with a chilling clarity, is more violent than any war you ever fought. It offers no clear enemy to confront, no blade to parry, no field of battle where purpose, however brutal, can be found. Instead, it forces you into a relentless, internal siege, a perpetual battle against your own mind, against the ghosts that refuse to stay buried, against the man you've become. It is a slow, insidious torture, stripping away your defenses, layer by painful layer, leaving you utterly exposed to the raw, unceasing agony of your own existence. You stop at the edge of the cloister, leaning your scarred hands against a cold stone pillar, its surface smooth and unyielding. The outside world, with its chaos and violence, now seems almost preferable. A world where the enemy is visible, the fight is tangible, and the consequences, however dire, are clear. Here, in this hallowed silence, the war is endless, fought within the confines of your own skull, a brutal, merciless assault that knows no ceasefire, offers no quarter. This is the true price of your homecoming, not just the physical scars, but the indelible, profound shattering of your inner world, leaving you forever adrift in a peace that feels more like a living hell than any battlefield you ever endured. You stare at the carved wooden Christ, hanging in stark, silent agony above the main altar. The figure is old, its paint faded, the features worn smooth by centuries of reverence. Yet, in this moment, under the weak, filtered light of the monastery chapel, it seems to bleed anew. A trickle of something dark and viscous appears to ooze from its side, running down the pale, lifeless wood, collecting in a small, glistening pool at its foot, the coppery tang of fresh blood, a smell that has haunted your nostrils for years, suddenly fills your senses, potent and sickeningly real. Your breath hitches, caught in your throat, a desperate, choking sound. Your eyes, wide and unblinking, are fixed on the gruesome illusion, unable to tear away. The figure's face, contorted in an expression of eternal suffering, seems to twist further, its painted eyes now locking onto yours with an accusation that pierces you to the bone. You remember the countless dying men you've seen, their faces mirroring this same agony, their blood staining the sand, the stone, your own hands. You recall the desperate, whispered prayers for a merciful end, prayers that went unanswered, just as your own pleas for salvation on distant battlefields were met with a profound, indifferent silence. Now, in this sacred space, that silence feels less like a void and more like a crushing weight, pressing down on you, stifling any hope of absolution. The chapel is empty, save for you. Only the distant, rhythmic hum of monastic chanting from another part of the monastery penetrates the heavy quiet, a muffled, indifferent counterpoint to the raw, visceral torment unfolding before your eyes. The very air around you feels cold, thick with the cloying scent of frankincense and the phantom smell of blood. You take a hesitant step forward, then another, drawn inexorably closer to the suffering Christ, to the impossible, horrifying vision. Your scarred hands, instinctively clenching into fists, tremble with a mixture of terror and a profound, aching despair. What horrors have you seen? What deeds have you committed that your own mind now conjures such a grotesque, blasphemous vision even in the most sacred of places? You reach out, a slow, unwilling movement, your trembling fingers hovering inches from the dark, glistening stain on the carved wood. Your heart hammers against your ribs, a frantic, desperate rhythm that feels impossibly loud in the heavy silence. You want to touch it, to prove it's merely paint or shadow, a trick of the light and your own fevered mind. But a deeper, primal part of you recoils, terrified of what you might feel, what truth you might confirm. The image is too real, too vivid, too steeped in the bitter reality of your own guilt. You pull your hand back, a cold sweat beading on your brow. The blood on the carved Christ is not real, you know. But the blood on your hands, the blood on your soul, is. This vision, this terrifying conjuring of your own tormented mind, is a stark, undeniable confirmation that the suffering you witnessed, the violence you committed, has not been absolved. The holy war, the path to salvation, has not brought you closer to God. Instead, it has condemned you, leaving you irrevocably stained, your soul a permanent, festering wound. This sanctuary, this place of supposed peace and redemption, has become another battlefield, another crucible of your despair, where the very image of Christ now serves as a harrowing mirror, reflecting back the unholy, unforgivable truth of your own damned existence. The crushing weight of centuries of stone presses down on you, not just from above, but from all sides as you step deeper into the vast, echoing nave of the cathedral. The air is frigid, damp, carrying the faint, musty scent of ancient dust and forgotten prayers. A cold that seeps directly into your bones, chilling you to the very marrow. This isn't the familiar, biting cold of a winter wind, but a deep, enduring chill that feels as old as the earth itself, as old as the suffering it silently bears witness to. The towering arches, meant to inspire awe and devotion, now seem like immense, unfeeling ribs of a colossal, fossilized beast, a structure that has outlived its own vital spirit, leaving only a hollow, formidable shell. Your gaze travels upwards, following the intricate carvings that ascend into the unreachable heights of the vaulted ceiling. Saints and martyrs, their stone faces serene, seem to float in the gloom, their silent veneration mocked by the chaos and brutality you've left behind. Light, a pale, anemic stream, filters through the magnificent stained glass windows, painting shifting, spectral patterns on the cold flagstones. But these colors, once vibrant and alive with divine narrative, now appear muted, faded, as if the very light of heaven has lost its intensity, its warmth, its hope. It's a sterile, colorless radiance, illuminating only the profound emptiness of the vast space, an emptiness that seems to consume any possibility of grace or comfort. You walk slowly, your heavy boots sounding impossibly loud in the pervasive quiet, each step echoing with a hollow finality. The vastness of the cathedral, designed to elevate the human spirit, instead renders you utterly insignificant, a tiny, scarred speck adrift in an ocean of cold, indifferent stone. Your hand instinctively reaches out, brushing against a massive pillar, its surface rough and unyielding beneath your fingers. It feels cold, profoundly inanimate, an indifferent monument to a power that seems to have long since departed, leaving behind only the grandeur of its earthly shell. This isn't the house of God, you remember. It's a cathedral built for a wounded God, a monument to a divine power that, like you, has been utterly broken by the relentless brutality of the world. A flicker of movement draws your eye to a small alcove, where a worn wooden effigy of the Virgin Mary stands, her face etched with perpetual sorrow. Her painted eyes, once a source of comfort, now seem to hold a profound, weary despair, mirroring the suffering you've witnessed, the suffering you carry. It's the face of a mother who has seen her children bleed, her world crumble, her faith tested beyond all endurance. You see in her stoic agony not the triumph of divine will, but the raw, unceasing pain of a world abandoned, a mother grieving for a God who seems to have been wounded, perhaps even killed, by the very wars fought in his name. The sacred here feels less like a beacon of hope, and more like a testament to enduring unabsolved suffering. You turn to leave, the cold air and the vast silence pressing in on you. But the image of that sorrowful virgin, the sense of a wounded, distant God, clings to you, a cold, persistent ache in your chest. The cathedral, with all its grandeur, offers no solace, no absolution. It stands as a silent, profound monument to the bitter truth you've carried home. The Crusades have not just broken men, they have shattered the very image of God, leaving behind only a hollow, echoing shell, a cold, empty promise in a world consumed by an unbearable, unceasing despair. This is not a house of prayer, you realize, but a grand, majestic tomb for a faith that died on distant, blood-soaked sands, its wounds mirroring your own, and its silence amplifying the profound, unshakable bitterness that has become your indelible legacy. The air in the small, cramped room is thick and stale, laden with the cloying scent of old parchment, cheap ink, and something else. A faint, almost metallic aroma that speaks of calculation, of precise, unforgiving transactions. You stand before a heavy, scarred wooden table, its surface gleaming faintly in the weak light filtering through a grimy, barred window. Behind it sits the moneylender, a plump, stoic figure whose eyes, small and beady, betray no emotion as they rake over your scarred face, your worn clothes, your gaunt frame. The rhythmic scratching of his quill on a ledger is the only sound, a dry, precise rasp that feels like it's scraping directly across your exposed nerves. Your hands, calloused and trembling, rest on the edge of the table, feeling the rough, unyielding wood. You remember the exhilarating rush of battle, the desperate, clear-cut choice between life and death. Here, there are no swords, no enemies to face, yet the tension in the air is as sharp, as palpable as any battlefield. This is a different kind of war, a quiet, insidious one, fought with numbers and ledgers, with the cold, unfeeling logic of coin. You feel an immense, suffocating sense of powerlessness, a profound helplessness that claws at your gut, far more terrifying than any physical threat. The moneylender pushes a small leather pouch across the table. It lands with a soft, dull thud, almost mocking in its lightness. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, he upturns it. A cascade of silver coins tumbles out, glittering dully in the dim light, scattering across the dark wood. Clink, clink, clink. The sound is sharp, cold, each metallic chime echoing in the suffocating silence, a harsh counterpoint to the distant, muffled cries of your impoverished village, a reminder of the brutal, undeniable truth that value here is measured only in this cold, hard metal. Your eyes are fixed on them, these small, round discs, each one representing a piece of your wife's meager inheritance, a fragment of your family's dwindling hope, meticulously tallied, relentlessly demanded. You remember the vast, shimmering hordes of gold and jewels plundered from conquered cities, the fleeting, savage joy of a rich haul. But that was then, a warrior's temporary spoils. This is now. This is a deep, agonizing plunge into a debt that feels like an invisible chain, binding you to a servitude far more insidious than any feudal obligation. The moneylender's eyes, still devoid of emotion, meet yours for a fleeting moment, a silent, knowing acknowledgement of your desperation, your profound, helpless vulnerability. His lips, thin and bloodless, curve into a barely perceptible smile, a cruel, satisfied twist that speaks volumes. You gather the coins, your fingers feeling numb, almost unresponsive to the cold metal. Each coin, smooth and worn, feels impossibly heavy in your hand, not with its intrinsic worth, but with the crushing weight of the impossible interest, the relentless demands that will surely follow. This isn't a transaction. It's a surrender. The bitterness, the profound, aching resentment that has been your constant companion intensifies a raw, burning agony in your chest. You, a man who once fought for glory and God, now stand utterly defeated, stripped of dignity, bound by the cold, unfeeling clink of the moneylender's coin. This is the true price of peace, you realize. A quiet, brutal, and unending war waged not with swords and shields but with ledgers and interest, slowly, meticulously devouring your very soul, leaving only the hollow, bitter echo of your profound, irreversible defeat. You're standing on the familiar, fallow ground of what was once your ancestral field, the cold, damp earth squelching softly beneath your worn boots. A bitter wind whips around you, carrying the scent of decaying leaves and the faint, acrid tang of frost. The field stretches before you, barren and empty, a stark testament to neglect and the relentless passage of time. You remember this land, every furrow, every stone, every subtle rise and dip. You remember the promise of its bounty, the tangible connection to generations of your kin. But now it feels foreign, remote, a ghost of its former self, irrevocably severed from your ownership, your very right to till it. Your gaze travels to the distant, imposing silhouette of the Lord's manor, cold and indifferent against the bruised gray of the winter sky. You remember the parchment, signed with a flourish, sealed with the Lord's heavy ring, a sworn oath, a promise of eternal tenure, of your right to this land in exchange for your loyal service in the Holy Land. You remember the fervor, the unwavering belief in that sacred contract, the certainty that your sacrifice would ensure your family's future, their secure place upon this earth. That promise, once a beacon of hope through endless sun-baked marches and desperate battles, now feels like a cruel, elaborate joke, a brittle piece of parchment shattered by the harsh, unyielding reality of your abandonment. A farmer from a neighboring hamlet, a man you don't recognize, guides his ox and plow across the far end of the field, his movements slow and deliberate. He works the land you once considered yours, his heavy boots treading the furrows where your own ancestors toiled. You watch him, a cold knot tightening in your gut, a profound sense of dispossession twisting in your chest. His presence here, his calm, unquestioning ownership of your legacy, is a stark, undeniable symbol of your loss, a living testament to the hollowness of all the vows and blessings you carried into battle. The bitterness rises in your mouth, sharp and metallic, a taste more potent than any spice from the distant east. You reach down, your fingers closing around a handful of the cold, dark soil. It crumbles away, dry and lifeless, through your calloused fingers. This land, this tangible link to your past, to your family's future, has been lost, a casualty of the very war you fought. You gambled everything, your youth, your faith, your body, your very soul, on a holy cause, on the Lord's word, on a promise of divine favor and earthly reward. And you lost. Not just the battle for Jerusalem, but the battle for your home, your heritage, your very place in the world. The Crusader returned, but the land, the foundation of his existence, has vanished, subsumed by the cold, unfeeling machinery of feudal law and the indifference of a world that has moved on. The wind howls, a mournful lament across the barren fields, echoing the despair in your heart. You stand there, a stranger on your own ancestral ground, understanding with a chilling clarity that the true defeat wasn't on some distant battlefield, but here, in this quiet, empty field. The Holy Lands, the grand cause, the salvation you sought. They were a cruel, elaborate gamble, and the stakes were higher than you ever knew. Europe, in its piety and ambition, demanded your sacrifice, offered grand promises, and then, in its cold, unforgiving reality, stripped you of everything you fought for. Your home, your future, your very identity, all lost to the relentless, unforgiving tide of a world that no longer remembers or cares about the promises made to its broken sons. This, you realize, is the ultimate price, a final, devastating blow, leaving you utterly, irrevocably landless and lost. The air in the king's great hall, usually thick with the rich scents of roasting meat, fine wine, and expensive perfumes, now carries a faint, acrid tang. It's the unmistakable, metallic taste of fear, subtle yet pervasive, mingling with the cloying sweetness of stale incense and the cold, unwashed smell of worried courtiers. You stand among the throng, an unwelcome shadow in your worn, dust-stained clothes, your scarred hands feeling rough and out of place amidst the silks and jewels, your senses, honed by years of sniffing out danger in the desert, instantly pick up on the subtle tension, the strained smiles, the darting eyes, the quiet, almost desperate whispers that cease abruptly as the king's personal guard, immense and unyielding, pass by. You watch the king, seated upon his ornate throne, his face usually a mask of regal authority, now etched with a subtle, almost imperceptible line of worry between his brows. His gaze, when it sweeps across the assembly, lingers too long on certain faces, a quiet, almost desperate plea for loyalty, a flicker of uncertainty that belies his power. The grand hall, with its soaring banners and gleaming armor, feels less like a bastion of stability and more like a gilded cage, a fragile illusion of control. The very stones seem to hum with a restless, uneasy energy, a palpable sense of impending doom that mirrors the constant paranoia that has become your own enduring companion. A sudden, sharp movement from a page, dropping a silver goblet with a clatter, makes a ripple of nervous tension spread through the hall. Heads snap up, eyes wide with a fleeting, shared anxiety, before quickly returning to their feigned composure. You feel it in your gut, a tightening, a familiar surge of adrenaline. This is the atmosphere of a besieged city, not a peaceful court. A place where every shadow hides a potential threat, every whisper a conspiracy. You recall the endless days spent on campaign, always on edge, always prepared for the sudden, brutal shift from calm to chaos. This, you realize with a bitter clarity, is exactly that same precipice, only cloaked in velvet and gold. Your gaze falls upon a cluster of noblemen, their faces flushed with wine, their laughter a little too loud, a little too forced. They speak of distant skirmishes, of rebellions quashed, their words ringing with a false confidence that fails to mask the underlying current of profound unease. You understand their fear. The whispers you heard in your village, of plague, of famine, of the free companies ravaging the countryside, are no longer mere rumors. They are an encroaching reality, a dark tide threatening to engulf even this gilded sanctuary. The bitterness in your mouth intensifies. You fought for this kingdom, for this king, for the stability of a world that now trembles on the brink of collapse. Not from foreign enemies, but from within, devoured by its own brokenness. You taste the fear, sharp and metallic, clinging to your tongue. It's the taste of a dying age, of a world unraveling, of a power structure that has lost its grip. The king, for all his splendor, is not the absolute authority you once revered. He is a man, trapped and afraid, his power eroded by the very forces you, and men like you, helped to unleash. The Grand Court, once a symbol of unwavering strength, now feels brittle, fragile, poised on the edge of an abyss. And you, a broken warrior, an unheeded prophet of doom, stand a silent witness to the chilling, undeniable truth. The foundations of Europe are cracking, not with the roar of invading armies, but with the quiet, insidious rustle of fear. A fear that has seeped into the very heart of the king's court, a bitter harvest of the Crusades. You feel the deep, resonant thud of a heavy boot against the stone floor, a sound that vibrates through the very ground beneath your feet. It's followed by a raw, guttural laugh, then another, louder, more derisive, that echoes unnervingly in the king's grand hall. The air, already thick with the scent of fear and stale wine, now carries a more potent, unsettling aroma, the unwashed stench of battle-hardened men. Men who have known only the brutal camaraderie of the camps, and the raw, unforgiving logic of the sword. Your eyes, accustomed to scanning for threats, are drawn to them, a cluster of figures, perhaps a dozen strong, standing apart from the courtly throng. Their clothes are rough, scarred leather and patched wool, a stark contrast to the silks and velvets of the nobles. But their bearing is undeniable. They carry their swords openly, casually, almost carelessly, a challenge in every relaxed posture, a menace in every knowing glance. These are the free companies. You watch them, your gaze unwavering, and recognize the type instantly. The gaunt faces, etched with 1,000 brutal memories. The eyes, too bright, too quick, constantly assessing, constantly seeking advantage. The way they hold themselves, a primal tension beneath a veneer of bored indifference, ready to spring at a moment's notice. They are wolves, brought into the sheepfold, and they make no pretense of being anything else. The courtiers, accustomed to the subtle machinations of politics, eye them with a mixture of apprehension and disdain. Their fear, a palpable thing, a cold sweat beating on their aristocratic brows. They don't understand these men, these raw, unfiltered products of war. But you do. You understand them with a chilling, sickening clarity, because you are one of them. You merely chose a different path. One of them, a massive man with a jagged scar across his jaw, lifts a heavy earthenware mug to his lips, draining it with a coarse, loud gulp that sounds like a slap in the refined quiet of the hall. He glances around, his eyes locking onto yours for a fleeting moment, a silent, knowing acknowledgement passing between you, a recognition of shared suffering, shared brutality. You taste the bitterness in your mouth, sharp and metallic, a blend of resentment and a strange, unwelcome solidarity. These are the unruly hounds of a distant war, let loose, unfed, and now returned home. They are ravenous, their hunger turning inward, consuming their own. The king, from his distant throne, looks at them, his face a mask of weary frustration, a flicker of impotence in his royal gaze. He sees their power, their undeniable, brutal effectiveness, but also their inherent unruliness, their profound indifference to the delicate balance of his court. He tried to leash them, to use their savage strength for his own ends, but the wildness of war, once unleashed, cannot be easily contained. He doesn't command them. He merely tries to bargain with them, to appease them, a weak master facing a pack of untamed beasts. You turn your head away, the weight of the moment pressing down on you. All the grand pronouncements, the holy vows, the promises of glory and salvation that sent you to the distant east, they've culminated in this. The very men who fought for the cross, who bled for Christendom, have returned home not as heroes, but as a plague, their bitterness a contagion, their brutal skills now turned against the very lands they swore to protect. Europe, in its piety and ambition, unleashed a destructive force it neither understood nor could control. And now, the true price is being paid, not on some foreign battlefield, but here, in the cold, fear-filled heart of the king's court, where the unruly hounds of a distant war roam freely, their hungry eyes set on the spoils of a land that abandoned them. And you, a broken brother in arms, stand a silent, bitter witness to the inevitable, terrifying collapse. The small, windowless room smells of old leather, stale bread, and the faint, acrid tang of cold iron. It's a dry, suffocating scent that makes your throat feel rough, your mouth suddenly parched. You sit on a hard wooden stool, your scarred hands resting on your knees, your gaze fixed on the flickering candle flame that provides the only light. Opposite you, shrouded in shadow, sits the local priest, his face a pale, indistinct blur, his presence a heavy, oppressive weight in the small space. The silence between you is immense, thick and unyielding, broken only by the soft, almost imperceptible hiss of the burning wick. Your skin prickles. You feel the trickle of cold sweat snaking down your spine, a cold, clammy dampness that clings to your tunic. It's not the searing heat of the desert that makes you sweat, nor the exertion of battle. No, this is the insidious internal heat of pure, unadulterated fear, the kind that steals your breath and makes your heart hammer against your ribs like a frantic drum. You remember the sharp, clear purpose of a physical interrogation on campaign, the brutal honesty of pain. Here, there are no physical threats, no visible weapons, yet the tension is unbearable, far more terrifying than any blade. This is a battle for your soul, waged with silence and unspoken accusation. The priest shifts, a soft rustle of his coarse habit, and the subtle movement sends a fresh wave of ice through your veins. You try to meet his gaze, to find some shred of understanding, some hint of the comfort you once found in men of God. But his eyes, when they finally pierce the gloom, are cold, unwavering, utterly devoid of compassion, reflecting only a stern, unyielding judgment. He doesn't speak. Not yet. He doesn't need to. His silence is a question, an accusation, a relentless pressure that demands confession, demands absolution for sins you can barely name, yet feel in the deepest marrow of your bones. You remember the fervent belief you once held, the unwavering faith that propelled you across continents. That faith, you realize with a bitter, chilling clarity, has long since withered, replaced by a profound, aching cynicism. But this man, this priest, still holds the power to condemn, to cast you out, to brand you as an enemy of God, a traitor to the very cause you bled for. The thought sends a fresh wave of fear through you, a sickening lurch in your gut. You, who faced Saracen blades without flinching, now tremble before the quiet, unyielding gaze of a man of God, his silent judgment more terrifying than any army. The candle flickers, casting dancing shadows that twist the familiar room into something grotesque, menacing. The sweat on your brow feels cold, cloying, mingling with the bitter taste of fear in your mouth. You want to confess, to scream, to unload the crushing weight of the horrors you've witnessed, the atrocities you've committed, the faith you've lost. but the words catch in your throat, thick and unformed, like ancient jagged stones refusing to be dislodged. What could you possibly say that would make this man understand? That would bridge the immense, unbridgeable chasm between your tormented world and his serene, unquestioning faith? The silence stretches, unbroken, a silent, agonizing interrogation. You are a crusader returned, a man broken by a holy war, and in this small, dark room, under the cold, unfeeling gaze of a man of God, you realize with a devastating clarity that there is no absolution, no forgiveness, no escape. The price of your bitterness, of your shattered faith, is not just your earthly suffering, but a far more profound, eternal condemnation. The sweat on your skin, the fear in your gut, is the bitter harvest of a promise broken, a God abandoned, and a soul irrevocably damned. And in that terrifying quiet, you realize the true terror is not of the battlefield, but of the internal judgment, a torment that will haunt you long after the candle burns out. The scent of burning fields hits you first, even before you see the smoke. It's a thick, acrid cloud, not the clean, sweet smell of a controlled burn, but a rank, pungent aroma of scorched earth, of precious grain reduced to ash, mingling with the chilling, underlying scent of fresh despair. Your gut clenches, a familiar, sickening twist, as you crest the rise and behold the terrible panorama. Below you, stretching for miles, the verdant fields that once promised bounty and life are now a desolate, blackened wasteland, still smoldering, sending thin tendrils of gray smoke spiraling into the cold, indifferent sky. Your eyes, wide and unblinking, sweep across the devastation, the neat rows of winter wheat, the patches of fallow ground awaiting spring sowing, all gone, consumed by the ravenous, unholy fire. In the distance, you can see the tiny, ant-like figures of villagers, their movements frantic and desperate, trying to beat back the encroaching flames with crude tools and buckets of water, their efforts futile against such widespread destruction. Their cries, thin and despairing, are carried on the biting wind, a mournful lament that echoes the profound, aching emptiness in your own chest. This isn't just a loss of crops. It's a death sentence, a famine laid bare before your eyes, a brutal judgment on an already struggling land. You remember the scorched earth of the Holy Land, the deliberate, devastating tactics of an enemy intent on starving their foes, on denying them any respite, any sustenance. You remember the gnawing hunger, the desperate search for even a handful of parched grain, the bitter taste of utter, soul-deep despair. Now that same brutal strategy, that same merciless hand, has been turned upon Europe itself, not by a foreign enemy, but by its own broken sons. The free companies, the bitter harvest of the Crusades, have not only raided villages but have methodically, savagely, burned the very means of life, ensuring a widespread suffering that will echo for seasons to come. Your hand clenches, instinctively reaching for a sword that isn't there. Your muscles, honed for violence, twitch with unspent rage, with a profound aching desire to act, to fight, to protect. But against this, what can you do? This isn't a single enemy, a visible threat to be cut down. This is an act of deliberate, widespread ruin, a systematic destruction wrought by bitterness and neglect. The heat, though distant, seems to radiate from the scorched fields, a phantom warmth that once signified the fire of righteous fury. but now only burns with the chilling reality of utter, irreversible betrayal. The sun, a pale, indifferent orb in the winter sky, casts long, stark shadows across the devastated landscape, a desolate canvas of blackened earth and lingering smoke. You taste the ash, the bitterness of despair, coating your tongue. All the years you spent fighting, enduring, sacrificing in distant lands were supposedly to protect this very land, this Christian Europe. But instead, the Crusades have birthed a far more insidious enemy, a corrosive bitterness that has turned inward, incinerating the very heart of the continent. The burning fields of Christendom are not just a site of material destruction. They are a profound, undeniable testament to the shattered soul of an age, a visible symbol of the despair, the brokenness, and the utter, unforgivable price Europe is paying for its misplaced piety and its cruel abandonment of its broken sons. And you, a silent, haunted witness, are left to watch the world you fought for consume itself in a slow, agonizing, self-inflicted fire. You're sitting by the hearth, the radiating heat from the crackling logs, a familiar yet somehow distant comfort against your cold, weary skin. The air is thick with the scent of wood smoke, mingled with the cloying aroma of damp straw and the faint, metallic tang of an old, unhealed wound that seems to perpetually reside in the back of your throat. Your gaze is fixed on the dancing flames, mesmerized by their restless energy, their ceaseless transformation of wood into ash and smoke. Each flicker, each spark, seems to carry a ghost of a memory, a fleeting image from a past that refuses to stay buried. You see your hands, gnarled and scarred, resting heavily on your knees, illuminated by the fire's glow. They are not the strong, purposeful hands of your youth, nor the swift, lethal hands of the warrior you became. No, they are old hands, prematurely aged, etched with the indelible marks of countless battles, endless toil, and profound, unhealed suffering. You trace a jagged scar on your forearm with a calloused thumb, the skin beneath still tender, a constant reminder of a blow taken years ago in a forgotten skirmish. The memory is not sharp, not vivid, but a dull, persistent ache that resonates with every flicker of the flame. A ghost in the limb. The rhythmic crackle and hiss of the fire is the only sound, a hypnotic counterpoint to the deafening silence that has settled deep within your mind. Your thoughts, usually a chaotic whirlwind of fear and bitterness, now feel strangely distant, muted, as if observed from a great height. There is no joy, no peace, no solace in this moment. Only a profound, aching emptiness, a weariness that has seeped into the very marrow of your bones, heavier than any armor you ever wore, more persistent than any wound. You are an old man, you realize, long before your time, consumed by a war that ended years ago, yet never truly left you. Your wife, a silent gray shadow in the periphery of your vision, moves about the small dwelling, tending to her tasks with a quiet resignation. She doesn't look at you. She doesn't need to. Her indifference is a testament, a stark, undeniable proof that the man she married, the man she loved, has long since vanished, replaced by this grim, silent specter who stares endlessly into the fire, consumed by unseen demons. The child, huddled in the corner, playing with a small, carved wooden toy, casts a furtive glance at your unmoving form, their innocent eyes holding a mixture of fear and profound, unspoken pity. You are the old man, staring into the fire, a vessel of forgotten horrors, a living monument to a war that broke men and then abandoned them. The flames dance, vibrant and alive, yet they offer no warmth to your frozen spirit, no light to your darkened soul. This, you realize, is the final consequence, the ultimate price of your crusade. Not a glorious death, not a triumphant return, but this quiet, internal dissolution, this slow, agonizing fade into oblivion, a life consumed by the burning embers of bitterness and despair. The fire reflects not hope, but the smoldering remains of a shattered existence, a quiet, horrifying end to a life that ended long ago on a distant, blood-soaked field. The night is vast and silent, the kind of oppressive quiet that swallows all sound, leaving only the relentless internal ringing in your ears. You lie on the straw pallet, staring into the impenetrable darkness of your small dwelling. The air is cold, damp, heavy with the scent of stale wood smoke and the faint, persistent aroma of decay. Your body, a landscape of aches and stiffness, feels impossibly old, a collection of broken parts that refuse to rest, refuse to find peace. But it's not the physical discomfort that gnaws at you now. It's the profound, aching emptiness in your chest, the hollow echo of a promise long since broken. You remember the solemn vow you made, etched into your very soul as you took the cross. A vow of faith, of sacrifice, of righteous service to God and Christendom. You remember the fervent belief, the unwavering certainty that your suffering would be rewarded, your sins absolved, your place in heaven secured. That vow, once a shining beacon through endless brutal years of war, now feels like a cold, cruel deception, a bitter mockery of all you endured. The bitterness, a taste like ash and dust, rises in your throat, a constant companion that refuses to be swallowed, refuses to be forgotten. You close your eyes, trying to conjure the image of a benevolent God, a merciful Christ, a comforting Virgin, but all that comes is the image of the carved Christ in the chapel, its face contorted in eternal agony, its side bleeding dark, viscous blood, a brutal reflection of your own tormented soul. And the Virgin, her eyes filled with perpetual sorrow, weeping not for salvation, but for a world consumed by its own suffering, a God too wounded to intervene. The faith you once held, the foundation of your very existence, has crumbled to dust, leaving behind only this vast, echoing void, a spiritual famine far more devastating than any physical hunger. Your hands, scarred and gnarled, instinctively reach for the cross that once hung around your neck, a symbol of hope and protection. But it's gone, lost somewhere in the dust of the desert, or perhaps simply discarded, a relic of a belief you can no longer hold. The absence of its familiar weight is a physical ache, a constant reminder of the profound, unfillable emptiness within. You lie there, listening to the rhythmic, shallow breathing of your wife and child beside you, their innocent sleep a stark contrast to your own tormented wakefulness. They sleep, unaware of the spiritual desolation that has consumed you, the crusader who returned, broken and damned. The silence stretches, unbroken, echoing with the ghost of 1,000 unanswered prayers, 1,000,000 forgotten promises. This is the endless echo of a broken vow, you realize. The final, crushing consequence of a holy war that consumed not just your body and mind, but your very soul. Europe, in its piety and ambition, demanded your sacrifice, offered grand promises of spiritual salvation, and then, in its cold, unforgiving reality, abandoned you to the devastating truth that God, too, was broken by the Crusades, leaving you, and countless men like you, adrift in a world devoid of faith, devoid of hope, condemned to an eternal internal purgatory. And in that terrifying quiet, you realize with a brutal clarity that the ultimate price of the Crusades is not just the physical suffering, but the profound, irreversible shattering of your soul, leaving only the bitter, endless echo of a vow that was made, and then, utterly, unforgivably broken,